Hey everybody, welcome back to another Overwatch League analysis video, this time for a game from the Atlantic Division. And boy, did the game I choose not disappoint. Now, I did want to check different teams out during this kickoff clash, the first tournament of the season, but I couldn't after what happened during this game. So I was most looking forward to the Gladiators versus San Francisco Shock this weekend. The Gladiators were reverse swept last week against one of the, the title favourites of the Fuel. Come up against the Shock team who look like they're on the rise, former back-to-back champions with a new rookie roster, mainly composed of the O2 Blast Korean team, who were one of the better Korean contender teams, and they've been on a roll at the moment at the start of the season, so I was really eager to see how both these teams would get on facing one another. And again, as I said, this game does not disappoint. So apologies to other teams who I'd wanted to check out, but this was a game. So the first map took us to the control point Oasis. The LA Glads enter with a 2-1 record, their one defeat against a very strong opponent in the Dallas Fuel, whereas the San Francisco Shock remain the only unbeaten team in this division. They're 4-0, but comparably have played what I think many would perceive were the weaker teams in the division so far. Let's see how they match up in the first map. So the first point of this map is the University point of Oasis. LA Gladiators have brought Patipan back in. Last week they ran with Arms on the Soldier, but it looks like their statement of intent right now is to run Patipan on the Soldier instead. More renowned as a projectile player, but, can flex onto other roles. Let me just drop this volume down a little bit more. Come on, tiny. There we go. Shock look unchanged. They're sticking with Kaluge on the tank, so to speak. Not really main tank, but, he was renowned as a main tank prior to going to 5v5. Proper and Keeler, this honestly unbelievable DPS duo at the moment. Finn, who's honestly looked like the best flex support in the league, in my opinion, at the moment. And then Violet is playing the Lucio. You can tell Finn is so good when you have a great flex support player like Violet and he's been pushed onto his off role. Other than that, the Gladiators team was remained the same as last week. We have Kevster in the squad again. Ryan is playing in tank. Shu on the flex support position, and Funny Astro on his renowned Lucio. And we already have an interesting thing as soon as we leave the spawn door. It's always nice to take a look at the heroes first, I think, when you start this map. So, Shock are running what is a bit of the core of this Ghost Bubble comp. They're playing the Reaper, but really it's just the Reaper. They haven't got the Zarya. Instead, they're running a Doomfist. Now, I've seen a lot of teams that have ran, obviously, this, Ghost Bubble with the Zarya. I've seen very few teams running a Winston here. I don't know if anyone prior to this has run a Doom with the Reaper as well. I kind of understand the Winston, because in theory, Winston, he can leap onto the back line, drop down his bubble shield, and the Reaper can just TP into the bubble, and it kind of is like a pseudo Zarya bubble, but obviously, the enemy team can just walk into the bubble and shoot in. But Doom offers basically no protection for Kilo, so he's going to have to be very careful with his life. They're also running Tracer, so again, it suggests they're going to play a bit more like a dive style, because Doom is honestly a bit like he's really just a dive tank. He's very similar to Winston. He now has this leaping ability, which replaces kind of like his uppercut and his seismic slam into one ability. Very similar to Winston's leap, so you can have a little bit of crowd control with it. He does a little bit of a slow as he hits. So it synergizes pretty well with dive heroes. Then again, Lucio's been ran, a lot of survivability, very nice. Also for control points, Lucio's pretty good even when he's not meta on other maps, because getting to the control point is very important. Getting there first, not just to the point. Obviously important to get to the point, but getting there first and getting your position is pretty important. What is really interesting is almost every single team so far has run Lucio Ana, and they break from the mold. They're running Lucio Moira. So the Moira can get a very quick ultimate. Coalescence is one of the fastest building ults in the game. She also has a lot of AoE healing. Her ability consists of, I call it piss. No, very vulgar. But she has a left click ability, which is like a spray heal, which goes out in an AoE. And does a surprising amount of healing. I can never remember the raw numbers, honestly, but it does a lot. So this is kind of a statement that we're going to play as a grouped unit. Like, probably going to have this core 4 and Tracer flanking in from the side. And Moira can just pump out all this AoE healing to people, keep everyone up, and try and build a fast coalescence. The problem that they're going to have is she eventually will run out of P-Juice. She will run out of orbs as well, because her other ability, she can throw out an orb which either heals or damages. At this level, a lot of teams will throw out the healing orb because it is far more useful. And once she's run out of P, she's kind of useless. She has to recharge again by doing damage, but that dramatically drops your healing. Like, for Moira, the healing is like through the roof, and then you run out of P and it just drops off a cliff, and then you have to do damage, and you're still low, and you're just slowly, getting more and more P eventually, and hopefully you win the fight in this period. If you get to this period, you're in trouble. The problem again for this Moira comp now is you look at the LA Gladiator side of things, and one of the great counters into Moira is Ana, which is what other teams been running, because if Ana can hit an anti-nade on the enemy team, Moira is kind of a lame duck at this point. She has a fade ability, so she has great escapability. So this backline is like, I hate to dive you. Like, a Tracer will not get a lot of value into this backline because Moira can fade, Lucio can boop, Lucio can speed, he can wall ride around corners. Like, this is a nightmare for Tracers. But it's a dream for Ana's, because if you hit a bio and there's no shielding on the Shock team to prevent a Bionade hitting, Moira's effectiveness goes way down, and you don't really care anymore if you can't, like, dive the backline anymore. You could definitely focus down the Reaper or the Doom. Now, Reaper does also have his own fade ability, so again, he has an escape. Proper has got a blink, so they have an escape. And Kalush has got a lot of movement ability, so this is a very mobile unit. It's very hard to lock down with like a dive-based comp, but they're going to be very susceptible to antis and sleeps even for Doom. Because what does Doom hate? Also getting slept. He cannot deny a CC ability like sleep. The LA Gladiators are also choosing to run out on the Doom comp. Again, it's not surprising to run Doom here. It's a fairly closed point. There's, two massive walls either side. If you take a lot of damage, you can drop down into like the little well in the middle, take up a mega, and you can leap back out again and be, full health and back into the team fight. So, not surprising that Doom is played here. Even when Winston and like dive comps have been meta, it's pretty rare they were ran on this point. It was often like Ryan Brawl comps being used, but without the Zarya now for the Brawl, the Doom I guess has been, seen as a more favourable option. Again, going to the Gladiators, we've got this Lucio again, important to get that to the point. Kefster TPs out some of the team, and is now going to go over to Tracer, and Patapan is going to play the Soldier. So Soldier is a lot of consistent damage. So it's really going to be in the favour for the LA Gladiators if they can make this fight last a long time. Shock have got this instant burst damage. Even Reaper, he's going to TP in, do a big burst of damage, and then he's going to Wraith walk back out again. So they're going to have these huge spikes of damage for the Shock, and then it's just going to go to nothing. And eventually this will slowly be eroded as Moira runs out of heal. So again, Shock want quick fights. That's the advantage here. Both teams posture over this high ground. Gladiators want to get Patapan onto it. I'm not entirely sure why the Shock come up here. It doesn't seem to really favour their comp that much to match them here. I'm surprised they aren't running around the back corridor on the mini instead. Because then you can play the cover as well with your comp that wants to, have a quick engage. Also, typically, like, very rush brawl type comps, like, especially the Moira comps, they want this one quick fight. So they normally wait till the control point is about to unlock, where the enemy team will go to the point because they want to contest it. And that is the point that Shock would like to strike. So it's kind of unusual they take this very early fight. I don't know if it's just to try and catch them out a little bit, This is very unusual compared to other teams, what they're running. The only, thought they can have is, maybe they're just trying to get the Tracer set up here, but they don't really care about the high ground that much. So Gladiators spot this out. Patapan on top of this ledge can't really be interacted with very easily by the Shock. And, there's a little bit of posturing right now. Proper is on the flank, and Gladiators, drop and move around. They realise if they get the longer fight, it's better for them. They're also better at, a medium range. Soldier gets way more value at medium range versus the Reaper. So if they can just, play keep away, they're going to be good. And also the Ana does better at range as well. So Ana can also be, peppering away the damage. These flex supports on Ana, they can output insane damage. So you can already see now, again, if you're not aware of Overwatch, and maybe this is your first time watching, this is Moira's heal meter. So she's used half of her P, as I call it. This is her left click. It's like a yellow spray of heal. And the control point hasn't even opened yet. She's used half of it. She's already been antied as well by Shu, so she can't heal herself, which she can do with a right click. So when she does damage, she gets like a lifesteal effect similar to Reaper as well. But it's pretty minor. But Violet can't heal her. Like, she's, you know, in a little bit of a rough spot. She has to fade to live. And by that point, you know, the anti's come off. She's thrown out a healing up for herself to protect herself. But she's really pumping out this P at the moment. Kaluj is taking all the damage as well. And now they got to the area where I think they're going to be more favoured. Close quarters. This is where the Shock are at their best. But it's not to say the Gladiators don't get value either. I assume at this point that the Gladiators have done a full rotation. My guess at this moment is that Patapan is probably on this high ground over here. And the Shock can't do anything about it. He can just shoot into this corridor. Reiner can still punch him into the back of this wall, so it's not like Reiner gets zero value. He has to absolutely no worries about a sleep. There's no CC on the Shock team other than a Doom punch. And if Doom, you know, punches another Doom, then they both fall down. Which is probably okay for both teams. But yeah, he has no fear of the sleep dart. This is like a pretty nice position for the Gladiators to be in. And they've also capped the point. Which, again, I think makes the Shock's plan of this, like, you know, instant beatdown. You want to win the first fight with it and then start snowballing your ults from there. To lose the first fight is kind of brutal. And they're probably waiting for Finn to get a little bit of a recharge. So Reiner's just sitting on the point. Astro can also keep control of the point. And as I said, Reiner can just drop into this well now for survivability. But the Shock don't really just want to play on this point anymore. As I said, Finn doesn't have infinite healing. He will run out. Finn is still in this back room. Proper's going to keep touching the point at the moment. He'll probably cycle with Kaluj and Violet for the touch. But Kilo right now is kind of just like, you know, a lame duck. He's used his Wraith Walk already. He probably doesn't have teleport. But who does he teleport on from this team? Like, Reiner can just, you know, dodge away. He can just punch away, leap away. Jogchamp can just jog away. Kester can blink or recall. It's really only Shu that he can get onto. And that's not a great interaction for him. Because if Shu has sleep up, and I imagine Shu is trying to save sleep for either the Doom engage or the Reaper engage, they're going to sleep you. Probably more times than not at this level. You know, this isn't ranked where you keep onto an ally and they panic and just sleep dart the floor like I do. They're probably going to hit like 70 or 80% of the sleep darts into a teleporting Reaper with no bubble. Okay, let's roll this forward a bit more. So Violet now is antied as well. He has to stay safe. Proper and Kilo work together to kill Reiner, and they take the point. This is a bit of the advantage of the Shock comp eventually. You don't want to push into the Reaper, per se. Like, Reaper wants you to, you know, fight in close spaces. So if you can, like, get under these, like, under the high ground and force people to drop into you, then you're at the advantage. It's really just setting up into this position that's going to be the problem. It's a bit of a misplay, honestly, I think, from the Gladiators to let Shock flip there. They didn't use any ults. They did get a pick onto the Doom. Proper then kills Patapan. And then Kester just goes insane with Astro. They've dived their backline. I presume at this point Finn has run out of PM, but look how fast Finn has built up the Coalescence. Already practically at a Coalescence, but didn't quite get it in time, sadly. Shu is killed. Astro kills Violet, the killingest support of the main support in the league. And Reiner is back already. Very quick to come back as well, Reiner. That's another nice thing about these two comps. If anyone gets picked on the Shock, everyone has mobility. Like, even the Moira has, so they can get back and recontest extremely quickly. The Gladiators, they have it on 4 of their heroes, but Anna would probably need to be taxied back. Anna dies late in the fight. Again, this is potentially a bit of a misplay, but I can see them letting this go. Gladiators get the point back. They've not invested any ultimates. Shu's not here. But I'm going to guess that Finn has also run out of Urea at this point, so he can't heal the team anymore, so they just give up the point. But I would have liked to see the shot keep contesting this. There goes the Coalescence. Very quick beat from Funny Astro. He beats the Coalescence. Which I would say advantage Shock in that regards. Coalescence, it's not a high value ultimate, but because you can build it so quickly, or you used to have to build it incredibly quickly when there were 2 tanks, it's a bit slower now that there's only 1. You used to have to build it basically in a fight, so you could get a huge ult advantage in the first fight, win the first fight, and Control winning the first fight is hugely important. Now with 1 fewer tank, it takes a little bit longer to, build up. And during this, Astro built up a beat, which is incredible. Violet's nearly got his as well, which is kind of crazy as well, because beat is one of the slowest building ults. But between the damage and the healing that they've, done to one another, they're both getting it. But you don't really want to trade beat for Coalescence. There isn't really the threat of the Coalescence murdering your entire team, but it does put a lot of pressure on. And I think without the beat, the Gladiators would have to yield the point. And they have control of it. They don't want to yield the point right now. But this will give Violet a beat advantage in the moment. Proper goes for a Pulse Bomb and is murdered by Astro again. Crazy support. Like, crazy Lucio player. And again, this is now the weakness of the Shock. Shu has used an anti, hit Kaluj, hit Finn. If Kaluj doesn't have his power block, he's going to get murdered. So they back out because they're antied. Finn doesn't have Fade anymore. He's dead. And they just run over them, the Gladiators. But again, just to go back to ult charges and, Kilo's role in this team, and why I kind of don't like it that much. I kind of get why you'd play the Reaper into this. Or with this comp. It is like a Deathball type comp. But he's struggling so much to get onto any one of the Gladiators because they're also fairly mobile. Pataphan has already used a Visor, won the fight with the Visor to keep the Gladiators' percentage ticking over. Kevs is about to get his first Pulse Bomb. Proper's already had a Pulse Bomb. We've had a beat. Everyone's got ultimates except Keeler's at 61%. Kaluj is also pretty far off at 73%. So Rhino looks like he's done a decent chunk of work. Which again makes sense, because if they're playing as a Deathball, the Shock, that means they're going to be more clumped together. Rhino will get more ult charge off slams, rather than Kaluj going into Gladiators, where they're all playing fairly remote, honestly. It's basically Rhino just anchoring the point. The Dooms are trying to anchor the point as much as possible. Again, an anti-miss there from Shu. But this is a great room to anti into. Also a great room to nano your Doom into. Again, they're all grouped together. Kilo is going reactive rather than proactive to try and save his backline. Violet is forced to beat. Would you trade Nano for beat? Yes. This was kind of bold from Reiner as well. To use Meteor Slam to actually try and do some damage. Normally, most Dooms will use it as a movement ability because it's kind of weak. It's probably in the bottom 3 ultimates in the game. So, most Dooms will use all their cooldowns, rather than what they normally do, which is, punch in, do some damage, power block now, and then slam away. Or they slam away, do some damage, and punch back out. They will use all their cooldowns, the 2 mobility cooldowns now, to do all the damage they can, and they'll use the ult just for an escape ability. Refresh all your abilities and then go back in again, and then punch out. It's a big amount of damage you can do on the Doom doing this. But, landing in the middle of the team was pretty scary. That being said, no support to really worry about. During all of this, Shu gets killed by Kaluj. I don't know how. I don't know if this is punched off the map, because Shu's playing on the high ground here, so I have no idea how Shu's being punched into something other than a potential pillar. But he pays for it with his life. Which is unfortunate because, in fact, I want to just check this again quickly. Because, again, we don't have the replay viewer. Unless I think you're affiliated with the Owl. Because I have seen that Custer has got some form of replay viewer. I checked again in case I was just being a real dum-dum. But nope, the replay viewer is not available for me. So Violet beats, which actually is fine. You've traded beat, I suppose, for the Nano and the Doom ult. Neither are particularly incredible. Nano's fairly good. But I understand why you do it. Kaluj gets slept. Anted. And he's 1 HP. He must punch Anna off the map because he dies first. Yeah, and then Shu dies. So Kaluj They tried to burst him down out of the sleep. He punches Shu off the map, gets the kill. Honestly, that's a good trade. But it does make Shock, again, hard to really get a lot of point presence. But now their healing and their sustain is going to be way more than the Gladiators. But it might be fine just because Reiner can, like, rotate touching the point with him, Astro, and Kester, and they can just play on this mini. Or the Doom can just go back onto the Mega in the well again when it's up. So the Gladiators definitely will fight this. Great charge punch from Reiner. That's now most of the damage gone off the Shock. They just have their support and the Tracer up. Astro kills Finn. Probably has the most final blows at the moment on his team. Great, thanks for an advert. That's just what I wanted. Thank you, Flixibus. One moment. Okay, we're back in the room. Again, I could run this on my partner's account. But, and she has the YouTube Premium, but I'm too lazy. I just logged in as the Andalodo account, which doesn't have Premium, so I will get adverts. But yeah, at the moment the trades are favouring the Gladiators. They're at 99% as well, so the onus is not on them to use ults at the moment. Kilo still has not built up a Death Blossom yet. He's about to be lapped by Proper. He's also dead, so he will be lapped by Proper. He's going to get lapped by probably Finn by the end of this. Patipan, you know, Kester. Astro is going to lap for the beat. But, you know, with Proper in the fight, you always have a chance. He is insane. Maybe not at that moment, kind of whiffed his Pulse Bomb. Astro gets another kill, uses beat. Kilo's just back. Is he going to get Death Blossom? He's not. He gets antied and killed at 99. And now it's just chase Proper around the map. And this is the first map. Things looking good for the Gladiators. Not too keen on this look from the San Francisco Shock, but I kind of get where they're coming from with it. Okay, the next map is the... It's called Gardens, this one, right? I always forget this one. And the other one's City Centre. So, again, we've just got to the point where the teams are just coming out of the spawn point, which is perfect timing because we can see the comps. And we have some changes. Now we're looking like what we have looked like for most of Week 3, where teams have strayed away from this Genji comp and gone to the Soldier Tracer. So both teams running Soldier Tracer. A lot of consistent damage in the Soldier, yeah. Vibes are a nice fight-winning ultimate when there's no DM, very few shields. And Proper is just going to harass the backline. And, you know, you'll be part of the coordinated dive with the Winston. Because both teams are also running a Winston. Very good in this map. There's a nice Pernus-shaped high ground here, where the Soldier and Six will probably fight over. Winstons will dive on top of it, and, you know, try and murder them. Force them off the high ground, kill them, boot them over the edge on the lower side. You know, that type of thing. And then we have this Ana Lucio backline, which, again, at this point, if you've seen other videos, you understand why this is good. Nano very strong. The movement from Violet very good. Also has abilities to, you know, push away flankers and divers. Like, you can boot the Winston off the high ground on his jump. You can boop a Tracer away. He's trying to one-shot or one-clip your Ana. So, this comp makes a lot of sense for both teams. And it'll be really who gets the positioning on the high ground first that's probably going to come out top here. And the Gladiators seem fairly happy just to give it up immediately. This might be because Shu gets Bionaded, so a nice Bionade from Finn. So they have to wait. Shu gets killed by Proper. Probably a bit of a misplay from the Gladiators there. They should have waited a bit longer, but he's at it again. Britain's best. Funny Astro boots Finn off from the high ground. I said it's so dangerous to be on this high ground if you're an Ana into a really good Lucio, because they'll be wall riding up in the skybox and they'll just fly down and boop you off the map. Admittedly, he was inside the corridor, so Finn probably should have expected that. But I don't know. He might have got double boots. Winston's leap has a little boop associated with it, so some funny movement tech can go on there where a Winston boops you, a Lucio boops you, and you just go a mile away because of, you know, physics in the Overwatch engine. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was that. Patipan murders Kalush, and now we're to a 3v3. Kilo takes down the counterpart. Takes Patipan and Proper kills Kevster. And the Shock get the point first. And now they can just set up with the Soldier on the high ground. Very nice positioning for them. You can see at the moment the coordinated dive is coming through. Winston is trying to dive onto... In fact, let me just take it back a little bit. You can see Tracer is waiting and lurking on this flank to match up with the dive. You're going to have Reiner, who's going to dive up here. At the same time, Astro is speed boosting Shu and Patapan onto this high ground as well, so they can also do some damage from here. And when they get forced back into this room, this tiny corridor, that's where Kevster's going to come through and strike on the supports. He might come this way around and into there, because he's close to this opening now. But that's the plan of the dive at the moment. Sorry, just one moment. I just need to check something with my roommate. Apologies for this. Don't worry, everything's okay. Just checking how she was. She's getting a cast off today, so big news for her. Okay, here comes the dive, forcing them back into here. Tracer actually doesn't go around the back. She blinks all the way around the point it comes with them. Surprised by that. I thought she would have, gone and feasted on the backliners, but this gives the Shock room to, bounce back and fight them in this closed space. Yeah, they get dived back on, and that's the supports down and dead. Nice sleep as well from Finn to sleep Reiner. And now the Shock will have ult advantage still. Kev's has done decent to keep up with the Shock's pace. It's really Shu that's lost out at the moment. They're 25% behind, on the nano charge. But a good pulse bomb from Kevster, or even proper here, is again going to be a fight win. And Keeler will probably proactively use this visor. So proper, immediately on the Ana. Shu has to use the nades defensively, and look at that focus fire. Murders them. Keeler does get killed before he visors, so there's no longer a nano visor on the table for the Shock. And the Gladiators are investing ults in this. Kalush has the primal to stay alive. Astro beats to keep his team up because Shu has died, so they have very little healing. Reiner... Did I say Reiner's primal? Kalush has popped his primal as well for survivability. Patapan pops his visor as well. Kev's has pulse bomb, so they've used 4 ults. This is a huge investment from the Gladiators. Equally, the Shock have tried to, bounce back and win this. Finn nanos before he dies. I didn't quite catch who he nanos here. Who do you nano? Or does he lose it? Who do you nano here? He loses it. He tries to use it on someone and gets killed. So he loses it. That's pretty big, honestly. Violet beats to try and keep him up, so both teams now have invested a lot of ultimates. Shock invest 5. Kilo is also visoring. And this beat is going to just be enough to let the Shock retain the point. If Shu could have got to his nano, this probably would have turned out differently. He gets his nano now, he's nanoing Reiner. We're going to have a counter engage. But the Gladiators still not a full 5 yet. They're just coming back. Admittedly, nor are the Shock, so they're probably going to capture the point at this point. Shui Ken gets killed as Kilo's on a flank. And now this is Giga rough. Shock, full 5, they have their Ana back. Looks really good for them. Finn goes so aggressive to try and hit an anti there, just runs into the Winston bubble. And this is all she wrote for this point. We will be going to City. But Shock look much more comfortable in this dive comp than the Reaper Moira comp. Bit of banter in the chat as well, accusing your team of C9ing. Very good, very good. Okay, the third point. This is City Centre. Again, the Symmetras are just going to T people, and we're looking at the same thing. It's another dive comp. There's this nice high ground in the middle by the jump pad. Also the high ground on the... I don't even know what to call this, like the pagoda type thing in the centre of the point. Both accessible pretty easily for the Winston players. Lucio can also get up there by wall riding fairly easily. And Tracer can blink around these 2 high grounds. I think Soldier can also helix jump from one to the other, so... A lot of vertical high grounds. What am I talking about? A lot of high grounds where you want to have your soldiers stationed up. And the shot get here early, interestingly. Again, the Gladiators seem content to not set up yet. And they've dived on the backline who haven't come up there. So they're hard engaging right now on Finn. But the entire shock peel for this. Kilo is like ran back in, he's like 1 HP. But Reiner is also getting murdered. Reiner dies, Finn also dies with him. Trading the main tank for your main source of healing, I don't think is worth it. I really would like the Winston to stay up here. It's obviously like, I say it's like the, you know, the Premier Uno pick. But it's only because it's easy to pick the Ana. If you can kill the Winston, that's great. Like, pulse bombing the Winston is pretty good value. Because you have to remember, the Winston has 500 HP plus a 700 HP shield. That's a big health pool to get through. He can, you know, sustain on the point for a long time. Especially if he gets a Primal. He's now not going to get any Primal. There's no point presence for the Gladiators. No one really wants to go out on the point for a long time. So even though the Shock don't have a lot of healing, they can, you know, sit here for a while. But both teams are, you know, they're trying to wait around a little bit. Try and get their plays back to a full complement. Sicily Center is also a famous point for stalling. Like, if you win a fight and then, like, lose one subsequently, you can stall, like, by feeding onto the point one at a time for so long. Anyway, Kalush goes in on Patapan and kills Patapan. At this point, Finn is already back. So is Reiner. And Kalush pays for it with his life. So again, we're trading 1 for 1. Probably the trade here, again... Actually, no. I think it favours the Gladiators this time. They still have Reiner. They've lost their main source of damage. But if Reiner can get a nice, you know, bubble off from Finn, him, Kevster, and Astra could probably just delete a target at this point. They could even delete Kilo if they want. Proper does a proper job, kills Astra. So that's part of the dive gone. But still, I don't think this is bad for the Gladiators. There are a player down. Jogchamp is back already, but there's still a player down. Kilo gets another pick. Just some individually great plays. Finn with a huge anti kills Patapan on the respawn. And the Shock are going to hold this. Also, because Shu's been dead so long, Violet has done a lot of healing. He's about to get his beat online. Astro is way off the beat. So, the Visor is going to get some good work for the Shock here. Whereas the Nano from Shu is probably not. They're probably going to try Nano Patafan just to build the Visor. They're really looking for Kevster with a huge stick here. But, like, it's so hard to get onto Kilo right now. If you go on the jump pad, like, they're just going to jump off and try and murder you. Because you'll be literally a clay pigeon. You'll be bouncing in the air. So this is kind of rough. You really need to get Reiner up there to displace them. And this is basically what happens. Kevster tries to pulse bomb him. Just yeets one out into the, you know, the ether. But it's fine. They forced them back. Violet is forced to beat for Kalush, which isn't a great beat, but at least Shu nanos in response. Mainly because he was about to die, so he throws his nano before he dies, gives it to Patapan. Patapan's going to try and build the Visor, and he's just going to go insane. Gets a huge amount of value off the nano. The beat was wearing down. He kills, you know, Kalush. I think it was got Kilo as well. I think it was a 3k overall for Patapan. And he builds up his Visor. And now Violet doesn't have the beat to counter this. So the roles have been reversed. Gladiators probably won a fight that they shouldn't have done. And it was a bit of a questionable beat from Violet. I don't know if he absolutely needed to. Like, Kalush was on a decent amount of health. Like, he was, what, 40% health maybe? Try and save that. Again, Kalush is trying to displace them. Proper had to go on the bounce pad. Throws a pulse bomb that forces Patapan down. Again, doesn't get a kill, but job done, really. And now here comes the Visor. Displacement from Reiner. And Kilo is built differently. Doesn't have Visor, but he has Nano. And he just 1v1s Patapan. Okay, there was just pure chaos there, but the dive from the Gladiators has worked out better. They've killed Finn, they got Keel as well, the big source of damage. Probably does trade this with Shu again, so it's a 3v4 fight at the moment. But Patapan won't be there yet, he'll be coming back late. I think it's literally just Tracer, Winston, and Lucy on both sides. But Kester has a pulse bomb. Reiner just Goomba stomps on Proper. Not how you want your Tracer to go out. Kevster just kills Kaluja without the pulse bomb. Very nice. Recognises that he would prefer to keep this ult. They can win the fight neutrally. Good discipline there. And the Gladiators, unlike the Shock, do hold the fight that they probably would be expected to. And again, we're looking for the pulse bomb here. The full Shock team goes up on the bounce pad. Huge stick from Kevster, getting Finn again. Mr. President has been assassinated. And they can't wait anymore, the Shock. There's not enough time for them to wait for him to respawn. And now this is just, you know, this is Kevster's world and we're just living in it. They can't heal the damage he's chunking off. They go aggressive, pick up the kills. And this will be the Gladiators taking the first map after the staggers, you know, are over. I said it's so easy to stagger on this point. And, like, you know, bait out more and more time. Like, it's kind of crazy. Well, they're basically having to force to go into the point 1v1, so they're going to lose this eventually. And there it goes. So, great start from the LA Gladiators. A bit like the previous week. So, Gladiators go 1-0 up in the series. And the second map takes us to the hybrid type map, Midtown. Can the San Francisco Shock pull the map back? So we start Midtown with the LA Gladiators on the defense. They're showing this same dive comp they've been using throughout the series so far. Kevster stays on the Tracer, Patapan's on the Soldier, Reiner the Winston, Shu the Ana, and Astro is on the Lucio. Sorry, give him his full title. Shock, they're looking like they're going to keep the same backline and tank line as well as the Gladiators and what they've been previously running. Proper though, shows the Widow, tries to get an early headshot. Doesn't get one, and indeed, they swap onto the mirror comp. So, Midtown has evolved a little bit as Owler started. This is one of the new maps. And basically, no team from the entire start of things has ever tried to push up this stairway on the other side and then come through the metro. This is such a tight choke, and you're really susceptible to being flanked. Like, Winston can go over the top of this carriageway and get onto this high ground, start peppering you in the backside. Lucio can also wall ride over there fairly easily. Or, like, people can just run under and back up the stairs again. So, like, you can get flanked, get stuck in a choke. Like, this is just no bueno. No one is going through here. Instead, most teams have postured to come through the underground section. And typically have a little fight around this little taxi. Like, the taxi's fairly nice cover. Winston, you know, can zap on the defensive side from this high ground, drop onto the cart. And then typically the supports have played in this, like, archway here. And then sometimes the attacking team either tries to push all the way through, or normally they come round here where you can go inside this room or all the way around to the alley. But it gives you a lot of cover going around this ground. Basically, teams just rotate around one another. Often as well, we can't have the angle here. There's another high ground which is just off camera. And often the Soldier holds in this window in this bottom right corner. But right now, the Gladiators have their supports, and Patapan are all over here. So they have like a 3-man squad on this sight line. Reiner can just zap down from here. And I don't know where Kevster is at the moment. He's presumably marking the flank on the right to some degree. But we'll see as this unfolds. So the Shock do as I suspected. Kaluj drops the bubble for safety, so no one gets picked on the cross. And they cross into this building here. And this was where Kevster was. So they start fighting with the Tracer. Fortunately, Tracer, a lot of mobility, has a recall and gets out. Huge bio onto Kilo and Finn. Shouldn't be a huge punish because, again, they're in cover. The bubble is still up, but that, again, restricts a bit of the time. But nice shot through the window, honestly. Now, they're going to move into the next building, which I think is a hotel, and I think people have been calling it a hotel. I'm not entirely certain. Maybe it's fire station, actually, now that I look at it. Yeah, this is probably fire station. You know, the fire truck, that gives a clue. Okay, we'll call this fire station then. Maybe that's the hotel? I don't know. But they've moved into fire station. You can go up and take a high ground here, and the point is literally in front of you. So they're just trying to get their Soldier into position to do the maximum amount of work. The Gladiators have rotated round. Now Patfan has taken this high ground where the Winston was stood. Shu has also moved around as well. So they can hide behind this fire truck. Patfan can drop into Metro if he needs to for survivability. Kaluj will start pressurizing the point. And they make a dive. In combination with Finn's anti, before the anti even hits, Kaluj is committed to the dive. This is huge. Great play. They catch Shu on the rotation a little bit. I don't think Shu really wanted to be here. I think he wanted to be up with Patfan. I think he wanted to be here. They catch him on the rotation, hit an anti onto him, go for a dive, and this will be Shu dead, I think. Or, no, he does perish. Great pick. Kaluj pays for it with his life. The entire Gladiators peel for him. And again, we're in this scenario. If you can't pick the Ana, if you can kill the tank that dives onto you, you're still in a pretty nice position because no one on the shop now really wants to go on the point. It's all well and good saying the Gladiators haven't got a lot of healing, but you have to bear in mind, especially with this specific comp, which I think is part of the reason why it's rose to prominence, I suppose, in the third week. Soldier has a health station. He can look after himself to some degree. Kevster has recall. So, in theory, if you took 149 damage on Tracer, because, you know, Tracer has 150 HP, you recall, you get that 150 back, so you effectively have, you know, 299 HP on a very mobile and high damaging hero. Now, this is never going to be the case. This is like the optimal case. You're probably going to be recalling, you know, fairly soon at this point, but maybe you get to like 20 HP or something, get a recall. So, Trace has a surprising amount of health pool. Also, she has so much mobility that she'll play around packs, so she can just pick up packs for herself and survive for the time being. And then Astro can look after himself and probably try and keep Reiner, because Reiner is the other one that's going to have a bit of a problem with the healing. Unfortunately, Reiner has also died during this, like, counter dive into the backline. Just very messy at the moment. Kester picks up Kilo, so again, that's a lot of damage gone from the shot, but Proper's still up. Kaluj is still up. Finn is No, Kaluj isn't up. Kaluj will be respawning at this point. Sorry, I'm getting tied up. It's just proper Finn and Violet at the moment. But no one wants to go to the point, so this is just giving time for the Gladiators to get Shu back into the fight. Kaluj comes back, he wants to touch the point. Proper's built up an unbelievably quick pulse bomb. These Tracers are insane. Kev's has also got a pulse bomb. Misses the stick, which would probably have won them the point. And Shu's also back now. Kilo kills Shu as soon as Shu gets back. He's like, hi guys, I'm here. Finn, who's been alive this entire time, builds up his nano. Nano's Kaluj. Huge anti, and the shock should clear this up from here. Just huge plays from Finn, honestly. Building up a very quick nano. The team staying alive, waiting for Kaluj to come back. Very nice. Very quick cap as well for this point. A lot of teams are being held here, and there's no real chance for the Gladiators to come back. And now we move to the escort section, which is a little bit annoying. There's this lovely high ground here where the defenders often sit, especially the soldier. Your Ana can sit back here, and you have these lovely barriers which can, you know, block any shots. You can just use them for cover. There's one here. There's also a room here. There's a room back down here. So there's lots of places, you know, to hide behind. Not mentioning, like, you know, the scaffolding here. You can, you know, wall ride around there, peep a few shots over, get a few hits. It's all very good for the defender side. Kevster is just going to be like a little mosquito. He's going to fly around through, like, the window up here, try and get around the back here, and, you know, pressurize the supports. The job for the shot will be to get around this corner and try and get some position. Probably at some point, Kilo is going to try and get into this window for some more high ground. Some pretty good cover for the attacker side. I really like this map. I think this is the best map they've added to the pool, by the way. Because it's not completely defender-sided. You have a huge advantage for the defense here. But on the attack, there are things you can do. Kaluj will probably do, you know, a soft dive onto the high ground. If it's a, you know, an anti-dive, he will go to try and kill Shu, obviously. But he can put a bubble down. The bubble will cover most of this gap. And Patman and Shu will have to reposition. This will give time for people to make crosses. Proper can also, fly around this side as well. So expect Proper and Kevster maybe just, go into a 1v1 at some point for supremacy. And whoever comes out on top will have a huge advantage. So let's see how this all pans out. The other thing I like about this map, and we won't see it from these teams, but other teams have tried to use like a rush style of things or a brawl and just sit on the cart as it goes through underneath, because this is a pretty cramped space under the point. So May comps could potentially work here as well. It favours different comps, which is really good. So yeah, Kevster gets dinked down, I think, by Kilo, but it doesn't really matter. There's a mini over there, I think. And Reiner is just holding the space. So I'm not entirely certain what they're waiting on here. I don't know if they're just trying to build up the beat to survive. The Gladiators are almost up to a full 5 complement of ults. They might be waiting for an anti for their engage, but they force a beat out of Violet from Kevster, and they're not going to get much value off this beat. Kilo tries to pull out a visor, shoot antis him immediately, and he's just murdered. Patan also pulls out his visor, so it was mainly visor damage done there. But this fight is going in the LA Gladiators' favour thanks to forcing the beat out from Violet early. And by the time the fight actually started, most of the overhealth had dissipated. And that was, the fight won. Why Kalush pops his ult here, I don't really know. This seems crazy. So you've lost Kilo. You've wasted beat. They're visoring, they're using Pulse Bomb. Reiner's also pulled out Prime. So they've used 3 ults here. This isn't too bad. You can, go back to spawn. You've used beat, visor, and traded 3 ults into it. You're about to get a Pulse Bomb. Like, Primal Rage, with the combination of a nano on top of it, which will probably come up fairly soon, that's a lot of damage. But I guess Kalush decides he can still win the fight. Here he pulls out Primal and offers 1000 HP to the Gladiator. So this is another visor coming back up. Does force out beat, I suppose, but look how much ult charge they've regained now. Patan's forced into another visor now. And Kalush lifts, so he's going to provide the ult charge to the Finn. So we have Nano, Pulse Bomb from the defense, and just Nano on the offense. And they're not close to any other ults. So this is going to be pretty rough. I'd probably say they're going to go for a Nano and Kalush, just to give him a bit more survivability. But Nano Reiner occurs first. They actually Nano Kilo instead. I guess this makes sense because Reiner's engaged onto them. They've been proactive here, the Gladiators. This will get Reiner up to his Primal Rage. Look how quick he gets this. Remember he Primal Raged the previous fight? He gets to 50% thanks to, Kalush's ult. Gets a Nano, and look at his ult charge. He jumps onto 4 people in a room, and it's crazy how much, charge he got off this. He's so close to the Primal. They Nano Kilo in response, to do damage to him because they're all in this room together. And Reiner is really unlucky here. He just gets his Primal as he dies. Had he got that Primal, that was a fight win for the Gladiators, 100% certain. They would have murdered him in that room. Instead, Keel gets to use some of his Nano. The supports had peeled around to try and keep Reiner up, and now we're out of position, so the Shocker's just going to run them over. Proper wins a 1v1 with Kester somewhere. And Astro, just dies cards. Very good. And now, this great high ground for the defense is now high ground for the offense. And the defenders will have to fight over this again. Another thing I like about this map, it flips over the advantage. There's still decent cover here, and you can also flank around this right side pretty easily. Deep dive there from Reiner. Kevster just gets completely destroyed. Where is Kevster in all this? Is he inside the corridor? Yeah, so Kevster is... Where's my pen? So Kevster's gone into here to, meet up with the dive, I think, from this side. And he's just spotted by Kilo. Kilo does drop very low during this dive, but not low enough. Ah, it's a great sleep by Finn. I just saw the silhouette. Finn sleeps Kevster, and then Helix plus damage. Kilo gets the kill. So, again, a great individual play from Finn. And just to clean up the fight, Kilo pops Visor. I don't dislike this. Gladiators put Primal into the mix. Primal's not a bad counter to the Visor, especially without a nano, because if, you know, the Winston can just get in his face, you can potentially offer like 1,500 HP to the Visor, which is basically the entirety of the Visor. So I understand why he's put the Primal here, but it's too little too late. They're going to have to give this point. Or they're going to re-engage. Forces B out of Violet. That's very good. Kevster uses the Pulse Bomb, but it's too little too late. It was, you know, it was too hard to really turn that fight. But they were close. If the Pulse Bomb gets a kill, they were potentially going to live longer for a Nano Visor. Again, the beat goes very early. I just want to see this from Violet. Who drops really low here? Like, he just instantly drops the beat. No one goes low. In fact, Reiner is the lowest person who, you know, which makes sense because he dives into 5 people. Violet beats, he hits only him and Kaluge. Like, this was a really bad beat from Violet again. It wasn't necessary. It really didn't turn the fight. But I guess they didn't want to be held here, so they decided to invest ults. Well, now the ult advantage is sort of neutralized again. Shu is about to get Nano Patapans on the Visor, so we're probably going to see Nano Visor. There's no beat to counteract this. Primal is very close to coming up, but Primal's not as good into Nano Visor, because you will murder the Primal Raging Winston. It'll take up a lot of the Visor, but he will go down. So they're probably looking for a big sleep, or just a pick on Patapan. Gladiators take control of this high ground, very nice. Look at Proper, like, Kevster is no mug on the Tracer, he's such a talented player. And he's getting harassed by Proper right now, he's struggling in this 1v1. And Gladiators wait too long. Finn nanos Kilo, again without the Visor, just to build up ult charge. He kills Shu, kills Astro. A little bit slow from the Gladiators there. Could have been a bit more proactive, but... They may be waiting for a Kaluge bubble or something and trying to break the bubble so they get maximum value out of the Visor. Nano Visor. Finn goes huge. What did I say? There are 2 counters to this. There's Primal. There's the sleep from Finn. Kaluge is antied at the moment and getting chased by the entire team. He could still Primal, but he'll probably pay for it with his life. Finn hits the sleep. Potentially fight winning. Kaluge now pops his Primal to stay up. But unfortunately, Patapan wakes up just in time to kill Kilo. Also, there's a really big beat from Astro to keep everyone up. Rhino was getting very low. He's kept up. Astro was... he wasn't too bad on the old HP. Patapan was quite low as well, I think. But they invested 3 ults to win this. But, you know, it's better than losing the map, so I don't hate it. Nearly goes wrong for the Gladiators here. Patapan gets, like, counterpicked on the dive, but killing the supports will give enough time for Jogchamp to get back to the fight. Unfortunately, Kevster then gets picked, and Reiner has to use Primal. Kills Kaluge for it, but really messy fight, but it's not too bad for the shock. You've pulled out ultimates again for basically nothing. And now there's no real answer for Kilo's Visor. There's no beat. Shu will have to hit the sleep. Reiner doesn't have Primal anymore. So they're really looking for a Pulse Bomb here or a sleep. Reiner immediately murdered. He's not visored yet. And now the Visor is very free. Great sleep from Shu. But it's, you know, it looks like it's too little too late. They've got 3 picks. At least so that this, you know, this is Gladiator spawn, so Reiner is back up again. He can contest the cart for a little bit. But no Primal, no beat at the moment. And here comes the Nano onto Kilo to build up another Visor. Big anti from Shu. They get a pick onto Finn. That's very important. And a pick onto Kilo from Astro. This is turnable now. Like, the defender spawns are so close. They have an advantage. Nice Pulse Bomb from Proper. Kalush is so close to primaling them off the point there. Like 1 meter away. But he can't quite do it. He still kills Reiner. And Patipan gets enough time to get his visor. And now it's just cleaning up crew. Some really big plays from the Anas. They make a little boostio to keep Astro up. Now, you wouldn't say, normally you wouldn't say the Lucio is your #1 target for a nano boost. However, in a scenario where, we're in overtime, it's 0 seconds left, you're 95% to the beat. The beat is probably going to be the thing that finishes the fight. Keep Astro up, don't let him die. They give him the damage reduction from the beat. He can do a little bit of damage, he's been so killy anyway. Like, maybe it is the best nano target here. He gets his beat, and that just keeps everyone up. It counts as this anti-nade, because Kevster, drops very low antied. Astro is antied, not too low. But they'll clean this up. And honestly, the things that made the biggest difference again at the end of this point was the individual plays from Finn and Shu. Shu hitting the anti as the shock were pushing in allowed 2 picks to come through, including the Ana and the Soldier. Your most consistent form of damage during that end push. It's so nightmarish again to deal with a shoulder, who is just peppering you away from distance because you can't really close the gap because you want to contest the cart, so he's just free shooting you. But they didn't have to worry about that. So really, really well played by both teams, honestly. Right, let's pull this forward a little bit. So the Shock are now on the defense. They're running the same comp again. This is the Soldier, Tracer, Win, Ana, Lucio, Dive. And the Gladiators are showing on the attack the same comp. It's the mirror comp again. They seem to like this comp, and it's working pretty well for both teams at the moment. So, don't break what's not broken. And again, we're seeing teams posturing over this underground. Patipan just goes up for some scouting and drops back down. And again, we have a little bit of a difference here. So, they're actually split off at this point. This might be a bit of a misplay from the Gladiators again, but it could also be a set strategy. Patipan ran into this, I'm just going to call it hotel for now. It might be a block of flats. I have no idea what this building's called. But he dashes in first. Kevster blinks through. Astro dashes through as well. So we have this core 3 here, and Kevster is clearly going round onto the flank. Rather than bubble them across, as Kalush did for the shock, Reiner dives straight into Fire Station. But look who's left on his lonesome. Shu doesn't make the cross. I think he intended to cross with Astro, but he's just in the sightlines of proper getting, peppered down. And you have now got your dive targets isolated. Kalush goes onto Shu, but Shu manages to get in. No, I haven't got it in yet. So Astro has to come back out again. They literally just sit in the room. Keel gets dropped low. I don't know what by. Patipan is also 1 HP. Just everyone is 1 at the moment. Kester comes out on top of Keel, so I guess they were dueling one another. Astro dives to proper trying to peel back. Reiner antied and killed. Hello, whoever is with me in my office. Which kitty have we got? We have co-host Millie. I can see your little black pants. But so far, a lot of, backwards and forwards trade. We've lost both DPS on the Shock have died. We've lost the tank on Gladiator, so again, they're going to struggle to put on some point pressure at the moment for objective time. They're also missing Astro. Not the absolute worst hero to get picked. Probably the best hero out of all of these heroes to get picked is probably the Lucio, especially with someone else, because now we can speed Reiner back into the fight anyway. But Jog, Champ, and Trace are going to get back very quickly. Kalush also pays for his life, and Kevster just sort of, just deadlifts this fight. Goes through and picks off each player one after a time. Also, what's interesting, I completely forgot about this. I just looked at my notes again, and I don't understand what this was about. They are running the mirror comps, and the same comp that Shock ran before, but they've swapped Proper and Kilo over. Kilo's now on the Tracer, and Proper's on the Soldier. I don't know what this was about. I don't know if, like, Proper feels like he can win the matchup with Patipan, or like thought he was struggling with Kevster. But Kilo doesn't mark Kevster as well. I completely forgot about this until I looked at my notes. I should be paying more attention. I don't know what this swap over is. Maybe it's like a set strategy for this map, that they're better on the defense that way around. Who knows? Either way, it hasn't worked. The Gladiators capped the first point quicker than the Shock did. And again, look at the ult charge. Kevster, 84%, Kilo, 39. And again, I don't want to, I've put Kilo up for, like, Player of the Week awards for me. Multiple weeks now. I think his soldiers looked incredible. His tracer look on this map wasn't fantastic. To be fair, he was going up against Kevs, who I think is one of, like, the top, 5 tracers in the world. So it was a tough matchup for him. But I feel like Proper was matching him. And I think Kilo would get the better of Patifan over the long run. Anyway, Reiner dies early, don't know how. Kilo, makes me eat my words and gets a kill on Reiner. Was this anti and just murderated? How does he even die? Where is he? Oh, I think he... I'm so confused. I wish I had the replay viewer at times like this. So Astro is anti, so he's not Reiner. Reiner just gets murdered. I think he's soft dived and he's now underneath. I think this is his silhouette. It's kind of hard to see. I think he's here. But I can't really see it very well. So I presume he's dived. He's messed up his bubble. I think I did see a bubble fall before the bridge, or whatever you want to call this. And the Shock just punished him. I just can't see where is he in all of this. It's just a mess. I'll look at this one more time. Yeah, I see him now. He's jump packing from under the bridge, so he was getting harassed by Collusion Kilo. Millie, please don't step on my laptop. It's like the worst time to do it. I'm still recording. Wonderful. You have an incredible knack for awful timing, don't you? Yeah, go up without touching my keyboard. Thank you very much. You're a saint. So yeah, so I think Reiner has missed his dive, or at least he's missed his bubble, and just got punished for it. He nearly lives. It's a pity, well, I mean, obviously it's a pity for the Gladiators he doesn't live, but she would have loved that little charge. Just can't quite keep him up. And now the Gladiators are just going to have to, wait. Kalush can move way further forwards, so there's not a lot pressuring him. And he's just holding the cart. And delivering lovely ult charge to Finn. So Reiner is back again. Shu has now got his nano. Are we going to wait for a nano visor, or are we going to nano Reiner in? It seems like Gladiators are more... they're more likely to nano the Winston. Whereas Shock has pretty much always nanoed their soldiers to build up another visor again, or gone for a nano visor. At this point in time, Shock are very close to 5 ultimates. The nano visor has no answer. Astro has struggled to build up his beat. He died early on the first point. Reiner, also who got picked early, is not close to his primal, so we could have a nano visor off, but Violet very close to his beat. There's an aggressive dive. Shock just completely give up this bridge area. And they will counter dive back in. Nano goes onto Proper, and it's a nano visor. There was no beat for it, so it was fairly free. No primal. Very nice from the Shock. And Kevster is sneaking in your backlines. He doesn't have a pulse bomb. He's used it already. Again, Reiner dives in, antied immediately. Finn gets inside the bubble to anti him, and he has to drop underneath. Close to the beat now. The ult advantage is going to be with the Gladiators. They have Nano Visor coming up. But Shock have the answer. It's the beat. Shu gets countered dove. He saves the nade for himself. Very nice. Here comes the Nano. Here comes the Visor. Violet is so fucking lucky here. I cannot believe he lives this. I remember watching this in real time now, and I was certain he was going to Ajax his beat. I think he gets a little bit caught on the wall, so here comes the Nano. This is the disengage from the shock. They're like, holy shit, we don't want to deal with the visor. Look how late Violet beats. His team's running away. He's stuck on the wall. He starts the beat now. Like, how low his health drops. And, oops, he just gets it off in time. Like, at what? Maybe 30 HP. He was very lucky here. He nearly misplays this. But he misses Kaluge with this beat, and Kaluge is asleep and low. Astro hits all of his team with the beat. Very nice. And they're still focusing Violet down. You can burn through a beat. He might not get every single kill, but you can get down one support. And again, Violet is just like out in the open on his own and pays for it with his life. Finge trying to keep him up also perishes. Patan just goes insane. I don't even see when he killed Proper. But that's a 4K for him. Could have been play of the week, but it's not. And look at how happy Patan is. He looks thrilled. I had heard that like he was, you know, he was very critical with himself for some of the, like, his play in the first week when he was getting picked, but at times this guy pops off insanely well. Considering, like, you know, he was playing Valorant for a year or two, he looks like a really talented prospect, so I'm happy to see Pataban happy. Anyway, Gladiators invest the Nano Visor, they invest the beat. That's 3 ultimates, quite expensive, but the Shock also invest their own beat. Not the end of the world, but not the worst thing. The ult advantage will come back round into Shock's favour now. They'll get another Visor up fairly quickly. Primal's decent. You know, it's a pretty good ultimate. But the counter to all of this is that the Gladiators are pushing this really quickly. Like, they've lost one fight at the moment, and it was basically when, you know, Reiner got picked and the Nano Visored through. I guess that was 2 separate fights. You know what, I'm doing them a disservice. Like, 4 minutes to push last. It's pretty hard to push this last point. But you could get to a situation where Gladiators now just wait for a full ult bank. And Shock are not contesting it. They're just letting it freely push through the first corner and under the bridge. Kaluge has the Primal to live. Reiner also primes as well for, you know, safety. And he's just posturing, taking the high ground off. Like, he doesn't even care about Kaluge. He's just not looking at Kaluge. Here comes the Visor. No Nano. They don't wait for it. Brilliant disengage by the Gladiators. We don't have our beat. We've used our Primal. We have to, you know, reposition. They have amp speed round the corner into this archway. They Nano Reiner as like a counter push. So, you know what? Let's just watch this again. This is fantastic. It looks so simple, but it's so effective. So Reiner's just finished his Primal. They hit a decent ante onto Shu and Patapan. Like, if you can get Shu, that's wonderful. Proper immediately pulls out his Visor. There's no... I don't think there's a bubble at this point. Like, he's used his bubble as he started the Primal. He's just coming back onto cooldown now. They have no beat. So, like, in theory, you know, this looks great for the Shock. 2 antis onto Patapan and Shu. And they've even given him the bubble so that he can't get slept. Like, this looks great from the Shock. And rather than using, like, a cooldown and an ultimate to cancel it, they use positioning. Immediately, amp speed, round the corner. Reiner does have his bubble back up. He pops his bubble down defensively. And they keep running. They know that they're going to aggress through the bubble. And now look at where we are now. Shu's healed everyone back up. The anti is gone. He's healed his own team. And when you get, like, you know, amp healing or just healing on Lucio and you've naded your team, it's so much healing. It's crazy how much healing like, a naded team with a Lucio, like, amp heal especially, puts out. Everyone goes back to full health. Shock invest one of their ultimates, but they don't have their beat either. And at this point now, the Shock are not in a great position. They don't have the bubble shield anymore to protect them. Like, it's going to wear out fairly soon. But it doesn't matter. If you Nano Reiner, he doesn't care about shield. So here comes the Nano, and here comes the counter dive. So, time to run away. Kevster just blinked straight through the bubble. Let's go on to full speed now, because I love that decision making. Very quick calling. They do make the outplay here. We don't have beats sleeping. They sleep the Winston. They leave him asleep. Kalush gets another bubble to protect his team, and Shoot goes down to Kilo. And now Proper gets another another Nano to try and build him to another Visor. A really good play from both teams. Astro's not getting out there. Insane tracking by Proper. Admittedly, it was just, Lucio just flying through the air, but he hit all those shots. And Patapan is approaching his Visor now, but Violet is going to get his beat in time. So this is looking pretty good for the Shock. Like, the hold seems doable. Patapan dies to Proper. And again, this is going to eke away a bit more time. Ryan has the bubble defensively, you can't dive in at the moment, and they're just, waiting for their soldier to come back. That's another, 30, 40 seconds off the clock. Kilo is looking for a pulse bomb target. He misses everyone, unfortunately. And Patapan pulls out the Visor. This is countered by the beat from Violet, but it's too late. Kevster kills Kilo. I don't think Kilo receives the beat anyway, where he was. I think he just gets tracer diffed by Kevster in the corridor. Interestingly, after Violet beats, Astro just immediately beats. If you beat second, you get the advantage. Doesn't go into Shu though, but it keeps Reiner up. And Reiner kills Violet, who got stuck on the wall. Kalush just tries to dive into the cart to stop it, pays for it with his life. And because Shock didn't contest earlier, they've lost one fight and potentially will lose this point. It was also pretty lucky again that, I say lucky, Shu hits the sleep on Kalush. Kalush has to pull the primal there. Even though he can't, win the fight off it, he has to just give more time for his supports to get back. You're approaching a Nano Visor. They have no beat. They do have a primal for it. But Proper gets very low. The Nano Reiner, and he just acts as the bodyguard. Again, this is a bit of a... I think this is quite a big misplay from the Shock, honestly. A bit from Kalush, a bit from Violet. And then just general team play. Reiner literally just body blocks the door with the Nano. But they have an ult advantage coming up. They have 3 ultimates. If Kalush primals and touches the point here, the Shock win this fight. But he just can't quite get on in time. I don't even think Astro boops him back. It's honestly just a C9 here. Yeah, I don't think he even boops him back. They just can't touch because of the primal raging Winston. But, nevertheless, that is... Yeah, C9 from Funny Astro. That's 2 map points to the LA Gladiators, which means the San Francisco Shock have to pull out a reverse sweep to beat them. However, the Gladiators were reverse swept last week against Dallas Fuel, so can Lightning strike twice? The third map takes us to the escort point, Route 66, where teams have run variants on the pure dive comp. You've seen a lot more Widowmaker there. We've seen Ashe on that point. We've seen a lot of Brigittas as well. Let's see what the two teams bring out, and will this be the start of the reverse sweep for the San Francisco Shock? So, as I mentioned, we go on to Route 66. It's San Francisco Shock on the attack, and they want to preserve their unbeaten streak at the moment. They're 4-0. This is map point for the LA Gladiators. They, on defense, have come out with the same comp. Deja vu. It's Winston, Tracer, Soldier, and a Lucio. However, the Shock are showing a slightly different look at the moment. Let me just check my notes for one moment. Yeah, so they make some changes to this pretty soon after coming out the spawn, but I'll talk about what they come out on. They will stick with this 4 core. Widowmaker is just trying to get a quick peak shock, I think. Maybe they actually stay on this for a little bit longer. I didn't notice down my time sign. I just know he swaps off this fairly certain, but snipers can work on this map. There are some fairly long sightlines, fairly similar to... kind of similar to Circuit Royale, but not quite as, you know, extravagant. So it does leave teams in this, like, you know, will they, won't they scenario. Some teams have opted for the sniper comps, others have done dive, or they've done variants with the Genji dive to try and get onto the snipers and, you know, just murder them. There's been a lot of brick on this point as well to counteract the dive, just boot them off high grounds and so on and so forth, and you can throw out packs to your snipers just to keep them up. Another APAC special has been running Ashe. Not many teams in the Atlantic Division, this being, you know, an Atlantic Division game, have run this Ashe, but Shock will come out onto the Ashe. There are some nice things about this. So, if you hit a dynamite onto the enemy team, like a dynamite anti, and you dive on them, they're going to die. There's very little you can do about it. It's just a great wombo combo. So, if you can hit the dynamite onto the dive, extra damage, the cleave of the dynamite mixes, you know, with the cleave of the Winston, and you can just put out huge amounts of damage. Ashe can also build ultimates incredibly quickly. She's also very sustainable into a dive. So, if you dive onto Soldier, Jogchamp, he can't really do a lot about it. He just jogs away, jogs out the Winston bubble, and then, you know, tries to pepper them down. He can throw down with, like, his healing station as well, but he can definitely die during a dive. Ashe, on the other hand, can coach gun up to a high ground, or at the same time, coach gun someone else off the high ground. So Shock have a lot of answers to, you know, someone diving onto them. If you, you know, dive onto Kilo, who's on maybe the high ground, you can get coach gunned off. If you dive onto Violet, you get whip shot off, or you can get bashed off. Finn can sleep you. You know, there's a lot of answers to the dive in this comp. So it's like a sniper comp, but with a bit of more survivability to the dive. So I'm going to let this play out a little bit. I can't remember how long Proper stays on this for. I can't remember if he just goes for a grapple shot and then swaps, or they actually stick to this for a bit. Nope, I thought this was the case. So he's going to come out onto, not the Pharah, he's going to come out onto Tracer. So this is a little bit more harasser. It's basically the same comp as the Lucio dive, but instead you have Brigitte, who's not going to be a part of this aggressive dive. I've mentioned this in previous weeks before, that the dive group has typically been like your Winston, your Tracer, and your Lucio normally takes part in the dive. And then they can, like, speed back and help the Ana if, like, you know, they get dove, or they can just peel back. Like, the Lucio, I think the decision of where the Lucio goes, like, how aggressive he is another key aspect of this meta. Like, how much are you willing to use your Lucio to peel for the Ana, versus how much are you willing to kill, like, their Ana. The opposite side for the Shock is that Violet cannot take part in the dive anymore. Brig's not the fastest of heroes. You do have a shield bash to close a bit of the gap, but, you know, it's not anywhere near like the Lucio speeds. But Proper can take part in the dive, Kalush can take part in the dive, and also Kilo, if they hit a dynamite or an anti, that's probably enough additional damage to, you know, kill off the target. And now Finn can get a little bit more, you know, VIP treatment. He has a bodyguard. So we have a little bit of posturing from here. Glad's on the high ground, shooting down onto them, very nice. Reiner, I think, considering whether or not to, you know, fight early, but decides against it, and can easily get out of the cart. So there's a huge dynamite. I don't think the dynamite shows on the display side, but I think this hit 3 people. And look at Ashe's ult charge going up. So, nice anti. The little bit of problem that Ashe has for this patch in particular, if she fights Soldier at mid-range, she's not completely, like, you know, the advantage isn't against her, but Soldier can really put out this consistent damage. If she misses, like, a headshot, Soldier will just murder her. If she hits the headshot, she can win it. At slightly longer ranges, Ashe will dominate the Soldier. So, at this point right now, you're probably in Soldier's, you know, like, you're in Soldier's realm. But as we come round to the point where the attacking team can take this high ground off the defenders on the left, and eventually the defenders will be forced to the right side behind Big Earls, there's going to be a longer sightline where the Ashe can put more pressure onto the Soldier. Either way, they pick Shu with a body shot. This will be the go button now. Astro dies as well, and things looking pretty rosy at the moment. The other thing that's somewhat interesting about this, again, I don't want this to be a 7-hour video, but I'm risking it. A lot of teams defend on big Earls, especially if they're running the break comp, because it becomes really hard to dive onto there. You have this lovely sign as cover. So if, you know, getting peppered by shots from the cart, like round here, you can just peek back into the cover for healing. You can also just drop off the back of Earls. And this is where the stairs come up. So the stairs is on the defender side. So you can readily get back up to this high ground. If a Winston dives up there, they can use like the big Earl sign equally as some form of cover. But normally what will happen is if there's a brig up there, they'll just whip shot you and you'll be back on the ground. And your dive is kind of like, you know, neutralized to some degree. The Gladiators instead hold on to this high ground instead. Not many teams have held up here. I think in part it's because of the Lucio pick. But Lucio could still have held Earls and boot people off. It wouldn't have been the end of the world. But they don't get as much value off the speed. So I think they're trying to look to be a bit more proactive on this first corner. They give up what's probably an easier position to defend. But they'll get 2 fights here now. A lot of times when teams defend big Earls, they lose 1 fight, they lose the point. So they kind of traded this a little bit more defensive advantage for the ability to get 2 fights. They could have also potentially dropped back up to big Earls. I think that was where they were going when Shu got picked. Trying to get back around to the stairs, get onto big Earls, but it didn't happen. Kaluge has already got Primal insanely. He was slept, but he pulls out the Primal. I don't think the Gladiators expected that. Kevsa hits the most important stick like you can get really at this point. Kills the Ana. Sustain gone now for the shock. Inspire is pretty good on break. I can't remember what is more. I think the Inspire is... Is it the same as Lucio's just normal healing? Not the amp healing. I really should know all these damage numbers. Honestly, I should just have a sheet with all the numbers on it, but I don't. But it's comparable. But Break can normally put out a little bit more damage. She's a bit more survivable than the Lucio as well. So she can like brawl around the cart and, you know, just push the cart along. But it's just not enough healing without the Ana. Still, the Gladiators invest fairly heavily. That was 3 ultimates. They use Pulse Bomb, which again, you can just kind of throw out there. Nano Visor. And that's a fight win. Shock use Primal and Pulse Bomb. But they still have a decent ult advantage. They have Bob coming up. There are answers to Bob, obviously, in this comp. Shu can just sleep it, is one of them. And this leads to another, like, situation. Which I think is part of the reason why the Bob is not that bad. Again, I've seen... And I mentioned this in my APAC video, that some of the commentators have just, like, shitted on the Ashe comp. Like, saying Bob's not as good as Visor. No, Bob is probably not as good as Visor. But if Shu commits to sleep Bob, and, like, the Bob is on the cart or something, so it can be contesting the cart, forcing, like, a defender to sit on the cart as well, otherwise sleeping Bob will push it. As soon as that sleep goes, Kaluge is free to dive. Proper is free to dive. They don't have that defensive tool anymore. So it's almost like a bait play to bait out the sleep, so that you can just have this free dive. In the past, when it was 6v6, this, like, Ana counter was countered by a Zarya bubble. Bit like the Ghost bubble comp, where you bubble the Reaper and, you know, they can't be slept then because they have a bubble protection. It used to be double bubble. You'd bubble the Winston, they'd be on the Ana. They'd use the Zarya bubble, then put their own bubble down, by which point, you know, the Ana had no chance to sleep and they could just get murdered. Which is why Ana wasn't the greatest counter into that double bubble. You normally ran Brig Zen instead. But in the world where we don't have 2 tanks, Ana sleeping Winstons is your defensive tool for the dive at the moment. One of your big defensive tools against the dive. If you're using that on Bob, that is pretty expensive. And if you don't use it on Bob, like if you throw out Bob and they dive at the same time and you don't sleep the Bob, or you sleep the Winston instead, Bob is going to fuck you up. Like, make no mistake. That ultimate does insane amounts of damage. It hones in, so you know, it doesn't miss its shots. It's, you know, it's like Torp Turret level 3 in a fancy little hat. Without D.Va eating, you know, all the shots up, which was, again, one of the counters to Bob, was just D.Va sitting there or someone throwing a shield in front of it. It's going to fuck your team up. It's going to force you to move out of the position you're in. Like, if this goes to the cart, you're not going to have to sit on big Earls anymore, because it's going to just murder you, or you'll have to go to the backside of Big Earl's. Or this right side as we're looking. So I really don't think the ult is that bad. Is it as fight winning as like a nano visor? Probably not. But I don't hate the Ash pick. Anyway, Kalush is nanoed. See, they do the play. They've dived. They've thrown out Bob as well. I'm not exactly sure where the Bob is going to be going. Oh, there goes Bob, sorry. He just flew past Kalush. So yeah, he's not actually contesting the cart, but he's going to force everyone off Big Earl. The sleep is here, it's gone. Shu doesn't have that answer. So instead of using the sleep, the answer is to beat. So they use their beat for Bob, which again is fairly nice. Now, I would have liked on the shock dive here that maybe they didn't nano Kalush. They kind of invest really heavily into this. If Kalush just dives onto Shu, forces the sleep out, and the Bob at the same time, then I think that would have been enough pressure to force the beat. And then you would have had a free nano onto, I don't know, Kalush again, or even Proper, to really, like, force some pressure onto the backline. They kind of were able to kill two birds with one stone here. They kind of countered the Bob and the nano with the sleep and beat. The other thing I guess I forgot to say about the Bob, I didn't really consider them using it like this. I think Keeler might be trying to aim the Bob at Shu. If Bob hits someone, it throws him into the air and does a chunk of damage. For a 200 HP hero, you're probably going to be almost dead. Also, it gives Ash an opportunity to, headshot you in the air, in which case that is your ass, you're dead. So it's not a bad tool to, pick people off. It's going to force some positioning, force the beat. And it's still, people had to drop a Big Earls. Astros had to go into the Mega. Look at Shu's health. He had beat, and he crossed this tiny little gap, came into the, this underpass, and he's still at 75% HP. Patapan is getting murdered as well. Astro has to come across the heal. This was a nice combo you just saw there. Shu naded his own team, and Lucio went onto the heals, so that's going to heal everyone back up nicely. But Reiner needs the heals, can't get it. He dives back in. Bob is going to murder him, forces Primal. So now, this combo of Bob and a dive, I guess with the nano, has now forced out Primal as well. So pretty good. Bob basically forced out two ultimates here. While this is going on, everyone was in this tiny room is now getting completely destroyed by Proper. He is crazy on Tracer. But very, very nice play from the Shock. I like this look. And as I said, get Keel off the Tracer. Put him on a long-range hit scan. He looks insane. Like, Soldier, Ash, Widow, he just looks like he smacks. And now we've kind of, fairly reset back onto the ult charge. In fact, Shock have the advantage after winning that still. They have the Primal. Unfortunately, Kalush is slept, antied, and murdered by the entirety of the Gladiators team. Kevster misses a pulse bomb. Kilo picks off Astro, so we're 4v4. Kilo is going insane. He kills Kevster. Again, I wasn't thrilled with his coach gun usage there, but it wasn't too bad. I think he tried to knock the supports off the bridge. And this cart is not stopping. They're just murdering. They used no ultimates there. That was a neutral fight. In fact, it wasn't neutral. Kevster used Pulse Bomb. Doesn't really matter that much. The Pulse Bomb instead just throw them out there. And the Gladiators are struggling with this. Brig very good into the dive. Classically, Brig was the answer and enabler of Tracer. I've mentioned this before as well. So, Brig used to have a stun combo where if you stunned a Tracer and then you hit them with the flail whip shot, it would one-shot a Tracer. So basically you couldn't run the Tracer into Brig. Eventually this was nerfed so it was no longer a one-shot, but it still does a sizable chunk of damage to the Tracer. The unfortunate thing that then enabled Tracer, which is why we saw a lot of Brig Zen Tracer meta at the end of our last season, was that if you dropped an armor pack, and it used to provide armor, this armor pack, to the Tracer, she was now unkillable. If your Tracer had an armor pack and the enemy Tracer didn't, because of the way that armor worked with, low, pellets of damage, you could not win the 1v1. It was so strong for your Tracer, it just wasn't comparable to anything else. So it enabled her so well that you had to match it yourself. So teams had to match this like Tracer Brig comp, where the Brig countered the enemy's Tracer but enabled your Tracer. It was a really unhealthy place for the game to be in. But Brig has lost her stun now, and the armor pack no longer provides armor. In fact, I don't know if it's still called armor pack. It's just health. But it still takes up over time and you don't have to aim it. So it's pretty good with Tracer. Like, throw it onto Tracer, she blinks around. You don't need LOS of it after you've put it on. And her health will just keep ticking up. So again, it's a nice little combo. And despite the fact she hasn't got a stun anymore, she can whip shot Tracers away from, like, the Ana. Get Inspire up, and if you Inspire, you're doing a lot of healing for your team, and then you just have to sustain with your own shield. Like, it's pretty good anti-dive tech. And right now, the Shock is saying, like, listen, dive into our cart, dive into our backline. Violet will keep them up, he will boot Reiner away. Like, you have to deal with this, and we're kind of anti-dive. And it's looking pretty nice right now. Again, nice ball from Kalush forces them to come out. Patapan drops the nano. I think he's trying to build a visor quickly, but he doesn't need it. I think he was hoping to just get a shot and then pull out the visor, but it turned out someone was low HP, hit a nice helix, and does some murdering. Astro dies, but it doesn't really matter. He wasn't a beat it anyway, and Kalush's death was so late that he'll be back by the time the fight starts. Very nice from the Gladiators there. And this is kind of an annoying place to be held. It's very hard to get onto the top of the saloon, which is where Kalush is going at the moment off the dive. He doesn't fully commit. It's like a soft dive to the sign. If you go over it, it's very hard to back away again. And Patapan will just have your ass. He will just murder you. So he soft dives up there just to put some pressure on. But at the same time, you know, Kalush has made his dive. The Gladiators, who have got a stronger dive comp, they're all gearing up to go into the backline here. They're like, okay, Violet, Finn, we know where you are right now. Shu is firing shots at them, like, you know, no healing in this household. We're going to try and hit them with an anti. We're going to, you know, shoot them. Astro's preparing to dive in. Kevster's going for the dive as well. Very early beat from Astro. Doesn't hit either his DPS. Kalush receives the nano and is immediately slept, so that's a pretty good counter. Don't know why Astro beats here. What causes the beat? It's like he beats because Patapan's low, but it doesn't matter. It might also be that Kalush received the nano and they just decided that they're going to use the beat to counter the nano already. And then he gets slept, so it's like, nah. Violet pops out Rally. Rally operates in a kind of similar world to beat, but instead of the instantaneous health you get off the beat, it's like this so trickle up of overhealth, and it carries on for a while. So it's another fight-winning support ult. And because, you know, he's popped it after the beat is already decayed, and the Shock will have this great overhealth. Kalush just woke up and he was an angry monkey. He kills Patapan as well. And this falls apart a bit. He also pulls the visor during that and dies with visor. So 3 ults have been expended, 4 ultimates now because Kev's has thrown out a pulse bomb. And it's going awfully for them. Astro dies trying to get back to his team. And they're not going to be able to contest now. They have to give this up. It did cost Shock 3 ults too. They also used a pulse bomb, they used Rally, and they used Nano, but they save Bob, they save Primal, and they can do this combo again. They can throw Bob out and engage in a dive at the same time, and it's going to leave Shu with a question mark of what he does with the sleep. Here is a change. The Gladiators, I think this is legitimately the first time they've changed. Do they stick to this? I've got a funny feeling they don't. No, they do. Or at least I've said so in my notes. They've been forced to make a change. So the Tracer is not getting that much value into the Brig, I guess. Like, Proper's getting the advantage that they're getting these armor packs. So they're tickling up in health, and it's just giving them the advantage over the Kesters. Kester can't 1v1 Proper. Can't get onto Kilo either that easily. Finn is being protected by the bodyguard, so he calls it. He's like, okay, it's time to pull out the Weeb Stick. I'm going to go into Genji. Genji, also famous for not doing particularly great into Brigitte either, but the Nano Blade is a fight-winning ultimate. If you're rallying and you go into a Nano Blade, you will die with the rally. It might take 2 or 3 swipes still, but it's not like Beat where you get this instant pulse of health which will keep everyone up during like the Nano Blade, and as the Nano Blade ticks down, the Beat ticks down with it, and eventually, you know, we get back to neutrality. The Brig needs the rally to, you know, tick up over time. If she pops rally and Nano Blade comes out, that's going to be her ass dead. She's going to get dash through slashed, slash again, and that's going to be her dead probably. Unless Finn hits like a nice nade on top of them as well. So now the Gladiators have 3 great nano targets. They have Kevster for the blade, Patapan for the nano visor, or Reiner just for nano monkey. All of them are good to nano as well to build up ult charge. I'd probably say just saying nanoing the bear Genji is the least valuable out of them, because you probably want the nano blade to counter Violet. Really just doing a bear blade into this comp is still not great. I can't remember how many swipes you need to do with just a bear blade to kill a rallying Brig, but it's too many. It's like 5 or 6 to actually get through. And if they do hit, you know, a nade on top of that, I think you won't be killing them. But that being said, Shu's at 82%, Kev's at 0. Shu might want to just give Kev the nano to build up some ult charge, and then Shu will try and, you know, lap back up again. You build nanos very quickly into this dive comp. Anyway, this change from Shock, this small change from going from the Soldier to the Ashe, and I think mainly going on to the Brig from the Lucio, has forced a swap from the Gladiators, the first swap from the Gladiators. They were not comfortable with the matchup. I'd also say that I'm not too impressed with Violet's Lucio. I think it's okay for the level, you know. I'm not gonna like sit here and, you know, blow smoke up your ass and saying like it's shit. It's not. It's really good. But compared to like all the other Owl Lucios, I think it's like in the bottom 50 percentile certainly, which isn't really good for the Shock. His Brig, however, is not. His Brig is in the top like 5 or 6 Brig, so this is definitely a more comfortable team lineup for the Shock in my opinion. This Brig and a combination. And if we ever see an Ana Zen combination, oh boy, the world is going to be in a hurt when they play the Shock team. Because this will be a nasty backline for that. Anyway, Reiner dives in and gets murdered. Doesn't receive the nano. Nano, it does go to Kess, so he's just trying to build up a blade as quickly as possible. Bob has come out again, and he's causing all manner of trouble. He probably split the team up. Kaluji's Primal kills the Nano Genji. And things are looking pretty bad for the Gladiators. They invest 1 ultimate, the Nano. Shock do invest 2, but like again, they're getting distance. They're soon to have 2 ultimates of themselves. They're going to get a Pulse Bomb. If this Pulse Bomb hits like Astro, who's about to get his beat, this could be the end of the map for them. Also, Nano Kaluj, that's going to, you know, ask some questions to your spotline. You have to hit the sleep, otherwise you're in trouble. Nice Dynamite. The Shock have taken this high ground on top of Truck. Very good position to be in. Proper is looking for his Pulse Bomb target. He might even go for Patapan. They're probably aware by ult tracking that he's close to a visor at the moment, which is a fight losing condition. The hard engage on the dive. Kaluj is nanoed. He does get slept, but it's too late. The damage is done. Patapan dies. Kester contests Kilo and loses the 1v1 as well. And now it's alarm stations. Funny Astro kills Proper, of course. The Lucio 1v1's a Tracer, apparently. And now they're just desperately trying to touch the point. Support's throwing the lives away for it. But Patan has the visor. And they get some picks. Like, this is kind of insane again how this goes down. So, because Proper dies to Astro, this means it's a 4 attack. Even though Proper is very quick to get back to the fight, the spawn door is so much more in favor of the Gladiators. They're going to get reinforcements quicker. Also, it removes a lot of your damage. Unlike having the Soldier, Ashe is not as much consistent damage as the Soldier, for example. So she's not great or as good at cleaning up fights. It really relies on like your aim. Like if you're hitting headshots, it's fine. If you're missing or hitting body shots, you're going to have a rough time. Proper in this comp is your consistent damage, along with Kaluj. So removing that consistent damage just allows the Gladiators to live just that little bit longer. Like, Astro just lives long enough that Reiner can get back, that Shu also can contest for a tiny bit before dying. Reiner gets to the point, and then Patman comes out with the visor. I don't know where Kalush's shield is in all of this. I don't know if he just runs through it, but they get into the back line. Finn is, I presume, used his sleep, or he missed the sleep. And they have to disengage. They hold, what, a meter or two away from the end? It's still a really rough place to be in, because the Shock are going to come back with ults again. You're close to this blade. You might get the Nano Blade. Shu is 40% off. They do have the beat, but the beat is going to be matched by Rally. And there goes the Rally. Astro beats, hits the entire team. Very good beat again. Kevster pulls out a bare blade and gets a 3k. Kind of insane, honestly. Does an anti come in during this? Or does Reiner primal in the room? I'm surprised he gets the kill so easily here. It just must be the entire team in this room all doing damage at the same time. He picks up Kilo first, who doesn't, I guess, receive much of the Rally. Kilo is anti, so Kilo is murdered. He does get the overhealth from Rally. But he won't get the healing anymore of Finn. So yeah, it's just a closed room. And the entire Gladiators are in there with them. And really, really nice hold from the Gladiators again. They were aware they had to go proactive there. And they used Beat, Blade, and win the fight. Still not awful for the Shock. They're about to get to 4 ults. Reiner again. The Gladiators are fully aware they're at an ult disadvantage right now. And they're throwing their ults out as soon as possible. Try and keep them off the cart. Fight them off the cart. Kill the backline because Proper's going to have to go and touch the cart. I presume this is Proper on the cart right now. So you can fight a 5v4 while this cart is pushing. And this is what they do. They go aggressive. They're fighting the backline. The Nano Reiner into the backline has now Nano Primal. That's a lot of damage. That's like a tank blade. Gets a 3k off it. The Bob really doesn't get much value. Now Kalush is just like, I have to live territory. And the Gladiators are doing it again. They're going to stop the Shock from pushing all the way. That being said, this map is notoriously hard to fully cap. So it's still not a bad distance for the Shock to set. Kilo, by the way, comes down to the Widow because it's a long sight line. So if you just, you know, they're not going to contest the cart, but they can at least get some picks. And Widow is pretty good without the ultimate anyway. It doesn't matter. There's more than enough here for the Gladiators to get the full hold. I say the full hold. The hold on third. Right, let's go to the offensive side from the Gladiators. So again, the Shock are running the same comp that they ran on the attack. Violet is on the Brig, Kilo's on the Ashe. And this comp probably is better on the defense. Brig struggles to close the gap with the dive, unlike the Lucio dive. But on the defense, you don't need to close the gap. You have the position. So the team have to dive into you. And that's where Brig, you know, is at their best. The real interesting here is what Kev's is going to come out on. Is he going to come out on his Tracer? Because he's just, you know, getting a few shots off on Widow. Yep, he comes out on the Tracer again. Again, kind of interesting because he was forced off the Tracer onto the Genji. It might also have been a choice for third point. Maybe the Tracer's just a bit too weak for him there and he thinks he gets more advantage of the Genji. Whereas the Tracer here, you can flank all the way around the big Earls fairly easily and, you know, harass the backline again. And right now, Proper's just marking Kev, so this is fine. But this is the different defense. This was the one I talked about on the first point. So, whereas the Gladiators kind of held up here and got... I think they got caught on the rotation back. The Shock peaked up here for a little bit, got a little bit of ult charge, and immediately came back onto Big Earls. So, we have Kalush up here, and he at some point will drop and stop the cart. They've let the cart push all the way around this corner, so they're at a point now that if they lose a fight around here, they probably could get a second fight if it's here, but if the cart moves to here, they're in, you know, this is one fight territory, but they're holding a more defensive position than this high ground here. Kilo has lots of nice cover. They have, you know, the actual just Big Earl structure itself. He can throw the dynamites over and just, you know, LOS the dynamite. He can just see the shot, but he doesn't need to see the people to hit it. So again, if he gets hit by the soldier, he just drops back, gets healed up from Violet. Violet is just staying as a 3 with these people. If anyone dives on, he's going to whip shot them back onto the cart again, and that's going to be kind of the dive over. They're also marking this stairway here. This is the defender's access to this high ground. And it's very reasonable to expect that at some point Kevster is going to come all the way around here and come to the high ground. So they're just marking if he does this. So I like this defender's position. And then Proper also can stop the cart. So he's just harassing down here. He doesn't want to go straight onto the cart right now because that's not particularly advantageous. But soon he might blink there, go to the Mega here, come back, stop the cart again, go to the Mega here. Like Tracer, and honestly Sombra as well is fairly strong on this point. Or historically Sombra was strong on this point because the 2 Megas either side of the cart. So yeah, Kalush stopped the cart for a moment, then engaged on the dive. He went into Patipan. Shu is also behind that corridor. He gets antied, he gets slept. But I think he's going to live. He gets back to his team. Ryan counter dives. And they're still pushing. Nice play from Reiner here, landing on here. Gives him a few right clicks. But Kalush has killed your supports. Kalush does pay for it with his life, but that's honestly worth. That being said, the Gladiators will get back sooner than Kalush will, but they're not going to be able to push it all the way. And again, Shock take up the big girls again. Kalush is already back. The Gladiators are going to push really fast for them to take advantage of that. Kevster playing around the Megas. Patiban gets picked, Proper gets picked. Again, no ults, just neutral. Good positioning, good play. Just Proper going insane. But the Gladiators are really struggling at the moment with this. They can't really get on top of Earls. Another strategy you'll see teams doing, and it's kind of what they're doing right now, is if you can't get onto Earls for like a dive or something, or your comp just hasn't got the ability to go up to a vertical high ground, like if you're playing like a rush comp, if you push under Earls here, like then the team on top cannot see you anymore, obviously, so you're safe. And you have this Mega here, which is very nice. So a lot of the team are pushing underneath Earls at the moment. Shu is kind of risking his life a bit, just stood here, but I wonder if he's going to get punished for this. I'm not sure. Reiner's gone to push the cart, which honestly Kevster could do. I wouldn't have minded like a little bit of a soft dive into the high ground from Reiner, just to put a shield there so the team could actually, get in safely. They're kind of dicing with death a little bit here. But he gets across. Kalush is nanoed. Nice stick from Kevster. Hits Finn. Finn nanos before he dies. Puts it onto Kalush so that he can contest the cart and has a lot of survivability. He has damage reduction. Whatever the Winston health is right now. Is it like 600 HP Winston has? Has his arm, has his bubble. He's not going anywhere. Kilo Bob's as well. Bob's cart. He's going to contest now. Kilo kills Shu. Kalush kills Patipan. Again, this is the Bob just holding the cart for them while they, to make up the numbers. They lost a player. That's a huge health total to just add to the party. And a huge amount of damage. And it's good enough to win. They do rally as well. So it was Nano, Bob, rally. I think they may throw a Pulse Bomb in somewhere. Gladiators, they use a Pulse Bomb, they use Nano. So it wasn't too bad for them. But they're losing a lot of time at this point. And we're hitting the point that the Gladiators are just going to have to invest their ults to make sure they win this fight. They're not going to get a better chance. Shock have only got Primal Rage. They will build up a Pulse Bomb probably, but Reiner gets into Kilo. I don't even know how. He just dives up there and somehow between the whip shot, the sleep, the antis, the coach gun, he gets into Kilo and just kills Kilo. They beat to keep Shu up, which makes sense because we're hitting final fight territory. Forces the Primal of Kalush, he's just going to get melted. And the Gladiators, through sheer amount of ultimates, is going to push this point. Finally. But some nice discipline from the Gladiators here. I said that they might use all the ults to make sure they get it. They invest Beat and Primal. They keep their attack visor. And Violet doesn't have a rally for it yet. Kalush doesn't have his primal, he used his primal in that fight. So although Shock gained a bit of ult advantage, they only used one ult, was not the end of the world from Gladiators. Great stick from Proper. How to nullify a fight with one ultimate. Just Pulse Bomb, their main source of damage. The spawn is very close, but it's actually a really nice place to hold them. I don't know if the door is closed. Has the door closed? It's kind of important. Trying to see. It has. So this is a surprisingly hard place to break out of. Some people just don't appreciate how bad this is. If you remember in previous videos, I've mentioned that Gibraltar second, if you're held at the very start of it, it's so brutal because if you imagine Gibraltar, there is a, unlike you're at the attacking side, you have this high ground up here on Gibraltar. There's a door here, and then you have the low ground with a door here and a door here. And the big main door in the middle is closed. So you have to choose door number 1, door number 2, door number 3, or door number 4 to come out of. And all of them are tiny chokes, and invariably the other team has the high ground, they're on top of this shuttle in the middle, and they're just raining hell down on you from here. And this can be so hard to break through, like crazy hard. Because what's here for the, the attacking team, sure, there's a little bit of cover on this door, but the rest of them are just open spaces, like there's no cover for you. And if you come out of, like, after this cover to get to the cart again, you're going to have to go through this huge amount of open space. And you're just going to get murderated. Route 66 has its equivalent. And it's kind of rare that this happens, because often teams fight very aggressively on this side, lose the fight, and it gives the cart enough time to progress to, like, here. In which case, this scenario doesn't really come out as bad. But because the cart is here and the door is closed, the Gladiators have to touch the cart to move it again, obviously. And now they have a choice of chokes to come through. There is a door here, an open space here about the same size as the door, and then there's one over here which is nowhere near the cart. Like, this is a really nasty choke. And a bit like Gibraltar, Kilo is on the high ground, and there's just open space here. It's not quite as bad as Gibraltar, because you can always, dip back into this doorway. If eventually you get a bubble and you can, like, dodge around here, there's a mega here as well, so it's not as brutal, but it's still really bad. So I like that Proper invested the Pulse Bomb. They waited just long enough for the cart to get through the door, won the fight, forced the Gladiators to back off, and now they're held in this really awkward spot. They have to push the cart, they have to touch it, but it's not a nice place to come through. So as you can see, the Gladiators have actually split up to deal with this. Who received a nano then? Kalush did. So Kalush got nanoed and immediately slept. He bubbles off the support, so the supports now can't see the tanks. They can't see Patron either, who's, just crouching here. I think he's on his heal pad, like, begging the Ana to heal me, and he sees this orange bubble, and he's like, nah, shit. This isn't good. Reiner is also getting chunked down on cart. The supports cannot heal them. So shoot nanos. They go for the nano visor, and this is pretty nice. Good try hiding in the boxes there, Finn. And the Gladiators get out of that potentially tricky situation. But again, this was 2 ultimates from the Gladiators. Again, they used Nano Visor, Shock just used Nano. So they're slowly building up a big bank of ultimates. And the Gladiators, they just have a Pulse Bomb at the moment. But I respect why the Gladiators invested the ults there. And it was a good play from Kalush, because isolating Shu forced that you had to use the nano there. Patapan would have died otherwise. Reiner could have died anyway. So, it made sense. Kester is now trying to hit the God Pulse Bomb. Hits Kilo, which is actually probably the worst target he could have hit in the squad. It's still nice to get the pick. Kilo immediately just throws his Bob out, and his Bob lands on this high ground. I remember this now. This is one of the funniest plays you're going to see. This was almost my play of the week, but it wasn't really a great play. It was just a funny play. So, they lose a person, they lose Kilo. But Bob, Bob, he's almost like a member of the team, He gets a gold star. Happy, what the fuck is this star? Alright, pretend they've not drawn, like, the Blair Witch symbol and it's a star. Bob can sort of be a 5th member. I think Kilo's trying to get Bob to drop down here. near, where the cart is going to, so that he can contest the cart, and also can shoot the enemy team. Unfortunately, where Kilo has thrown Bob is on this side of the cover, so the Gladiators just need to stay over here, and Bob can't see them. And what's going to happen in the moment is that Kalush is going to try and push the Bob off the edge. He's like, let's slow this down. This is quite funny. So Kalush moves across because you can slowly push Bob a little bit if you're on like their team. And Kalush is just nudging the Bob, trying to get him round this corner to give him a sightline to shoe. And the counter to Kalush pushing the Bob, Funny Astro is going to come up and boot Bob back up again. So Bob gets booted over here by Astro behind more cover. Unfortunately, this time he does have a bit of a line of sight, but he can't see Shu anymore. He does chunk Astro down, but this made me laugh so much. You know what? It's not play of the week, but close to play of the week from Kalush trying to push Bob onto the point. I enjoyed it. And then for Astro trying to boop him back up again. Unfortunately, during this, Shu gets chunked down. I'm not entirely sure by what. The aggressively dive Finn, he has to nade himself. This splits him off pretty badly from Reiner, who gets antied anyway. He's out of his bubble. He gets murdered. But they kill Finn. So not too bad. Probably it's a huge pulse bomb again. Kalush is killed. So this is still, this is dicey at the moment. It's, I think, 3v3. The Gladiators, they're getting a bunch of kills. I think they're up 1 at the moment, but Kilo is probably just back into the fight now. Kalush will be close to the fight. And this core of 3 pushes the point in. Very nice play from both teams. I enjoyed that. And now Shock's ult bank has, gone up in flames. This is looking great for the Gladiators to finish this map out. Kilo was forced to use Bob in a situation he didn't want to use it. Proper uses his pulse bomb, does get a kill, but they don't win the fight. Violet rallies as well during this. So they use 3 of the ults they build up. The Gladiators, they used pulse bomb. That was it. That's all. I think that was the only ult they invested into that fight. I don't even think they had the visor for it. So, great for them. They're now in the ult ascendancy. And, as I said, things look really good for them right now. Shu gets hit with an anti, and I don't... Oh, I see exactly what happens. This is potentially a misplay from Astro or a huge play from Kalush. It's going to be hard to see it, but I'll try and rewind this. So, Beat does not go through barriers. This is one of the things about Beat. Shu is unfortunately on the wrong side of the Winston barrier from Kalush. I think he must have put the bubble down after the beat, because Kester and Patsman had received it, or Astro was here beating and tried to get around the corner, but he didn't hit Shu. So he was trying to keep Shu up here, who was antied. Let me just wind this back a second. Can we see this? Yeah, it's Kalush. He makes a huge outplay here. He drops the bubble and Astro is beat. Shu's trying to desperately run back to Astro. But they don't get the kill onto Shu, so it just forces position. But it kind of wastes the beat for Astro. Kalush comes in, gets a kill on Patspan. Nice sleep again from Shu. Plays very well this game. Reiner's antied and primaled. And that's 2 ultimates, and they were held. Nice anti again onto Kalush. They're trying to chase up. Brilliant whip shot from Violet. Kalush is going to die for it, but they gave him a chance. And this is going to be a lot of, ground. They nano Kilo here, which is a very unusual nano target. Because again, this is a bit of the problem with the shot comp. The only really great nano target is Winston. Trace is not awful. Brig if you need to keep the Brig alive. Ash isn't great, and Bob is not a great nano target either. As much as you might say, like, oh, let's nano the Bob. Then you will make the decision of the sleep target. You will sleep nano Bob, because that is too much damage. Shu nanos Patapan, and he's immediately slept. He pulls out his visor, he's slept, pulse bombed, and this is the biggest play of the game. Finn comes out with a clutch sleep. It was their only answer to this fight. Violet is antied and doesn't have rally, Patapan is on the high ground. He's got Nano Visor. He's like, I'm going to win the fight for my team. Kilo is half health in front of me. Even though the Nano, they're going to get murdered by a Nano Visor. And Finn just sleeps him. Then Kilo starts going insane. He reclaims the high ground. And now, we have less than a minute, as they're pointing out. The Gladiators have only Pulse Bomb. They're going to have to fight into a rally on the last fight, and they're going to have to fight into Bob. That's a lot of health to get through. So we need a big Pulse Bomb here for the Gladiators to win this. To deny a potential reverse sweep. There goes the Pulse Bomb. Somehow Thread's needable. Kills Finn anyway. That's a lot of healing gone. You'll take that as your Pulse Bomb target. The problem they're going to have, though, is, well, Reiner has now died on the aggressive dive. The Bobs as a counter to it. Violet's rally is going to provide a lot of health to the entire team. Kilo is also 1 HP at the moment. Kilo's Bob kills Kes, who is trying to kill Kilo. Just small margins, like very small outplays, do it for the Shock. And the Shock will take this from here now. They will clear up the Gladiators, who can't even touch in time. Finn sleeping the Nano Visor was the match winning, and by match I mean map, I guess, winning play. Because without that, they lose. And this is, the match as well. So I guess it was match shaving at this point. Then just some small, tiny little things. The Bob killing Kevs, who's going on to Kilo. That's very brutal. If he gets the kill onto Kilo and recalls back into this team, that's still a 4v3 at that point, and they haven't got Ana heals. It's still rally, though I think they will lose anyway. But that's just... It wasn't quite good enough for the Gladiators. They didn't quite make, the hero individual play that the Shock did here. So now you can smell the fear in the Gladiators. They were reverse swept last week. The Shock just denied them thanks to a hero play on map 3. And this takes us to map 4. This is Colosseo, which is push. And it's a brutal game mode. Teams who lose the first fight often go on to lose the rest of the map. So, tensions are very high at this point. Can the Gladiators see this out, or will we be taken to a map number 5? So we're into map 4, the Ancient Streets of Colosseo, the new push-type game mode for this season of OWL. And we see, again, no substitutions, and indications from both teams as we come close to the clock for releasing the Gladiators. And I guess the Shock in this case. You know what, this is almost the Gladiators' home territory by name. We're looking like we're going to play this Winston dive comp again. We have Trace the Soldier and a Lucio, and it's going to be mirrored by the Shock. Property is going to be on the Tracer this time, not Kilo. I prefer this look from the Shock. Immediately, both teams are going to fight over Jeff himself. Sit in this corridor. A few teams I've seen that have been flanking around the outside with this dive comp. But I think they're a little bit worried about going to the Reaper comp, so... Teams typically posture a little bit around the robot. He has to... decide which way he wants to go first, so he has a little bit of thinking time. And now he can be unlocked, so whoever's on the cart will push Jeff in a certain direction. And at this point, again, we're just looking for picks right now. There's no one engaging the dive, we're just poking away. If someone hits a big anti, that's going to be the go button. Or a huge chunk of damage comes in. Finn dropping low. Kaluge is anti, so Kaluge is probably not the greatest anti-target. But this was a bit of a go button for Gladiators. They make a little bit more distance. They move a few pillars forwards. But the anti is already worn off. Now, again, we get another anti the other way. This is onto Reiner, and this was much more decisive from the Shock. They just go for it. They're low health, but they take some more territory. They're straight forwards onto Patapan, and Shu hits a big anti. So big it just kills Kilo. And, as I said, Gladiators, this looks good. They win the first fight in push. They're now going to get some stagger kills. Reiner does pay for it with his life, but, you'll take this distance at this point. This is just free push. Proper matches Kester in the 1v1. Very impressive. And again, I've mentioned this before, the Gladiators, we don't want to fight in this open space. This is too scary. We're going to go back, get our tank, and we'll fight again inside the Coliseum. We'll do some poking again. Kester and Proper have built up a Pulse Bomb during this time. The supports have also built up both their ultimates. Again, crazy pace from these teams. I don't know exactly where the traitors are, but they look like they're on top of each other at the moment. I think Proper is underneath and Kester's on the high ground, or vice versa. Okay, Proper's on the high ground, sorry, and Kester's underneath. He's inside this room at the moment. So he's looking for one of the supports. If he can Pulse Bomb Finn or Violet, it'll be huge. Kester misses his Pulse Bomb. That's always going to happen. Kilo receives the Nano. Violet gets beat up immediately to keep Kilo alive so he gets maximum value out of this visor. Patapan pulls his visor. He's also going to get nanoed. And again, Astro pulls out the beat. Big difference. Reiner does not receive the beat. Nor does Kevster, but Kevster, I guess, is on the flank somewhere. In fact, we can see Kevster right now. He's on the back line trying to pressure them. Reiner was underneath. I don't know how he's not got the beat here. I don't know if there was a bubble in between them or if he was just around the corner. But him not getting the beat is probably going to lead to his demise. Somehow he lives. And then Finn and Kilo have a later Nano Visor. So I mentioned this before. Beat is an instant burst of health. And then it decays back down again. If you Nano Visor after, like, you know, the beat has come out, you're going to be in a pretty good situation. So I think... How does this go down? I just... You know what? Let's slow this one down. This is a very important fight at the moment. Because if the Gladiators win this, they're probably looking good to take this back. They have 30 meters already. They'll push to probably like 45 meters-ish. And that's often good enough to win. So Kester misses his Pulse Bomb. We know that. So we're going to see a beat from Violet first. So shoot Nano's pattern. That's the first thing that happens. So I don't think they expect Violet to have the beat. So Violet counters this ult with two. Sorry, counters two ultimates with his beat. Then Finn nanos Kilo. I see what goes on here. And immediately Astro pulls the beat out. But they save the visor. This is fight winning from the shock, this decision making. So Kilo will pull out his visor at the tail end of the Nano. Maybe not even with Nano anymore, but the beat will have decayed. And the Gladiators are just so far forwards. They push forward with all his health. Reiner was really low. Big anti. So yeah, Kilo has a little bit left of the Nano when he starts his visor. But the beat is wore off. He kills Patapan, who's the most dangerous damage source at the moment. He still had Nano on him. He focuses him down and kills him. Then goes around and kills Astro. Reiner somehow managed to live till that point. And the Shock win it. And pull 3 ultimates out the Gladiators. Sorry, 4 even. They use Pulse Bomb as well. Shock use 3. They still have a Pulse Bomb. I don't hate, again, that Kevster used the Pulse Bomb early. I think that made sense. But again, pretty disciplined from Proper to save it. Nice sleep on Reiner, but he's probably safe where he's gone. The Gladiators definitely trying to fight this before it gets to like this open area. Like, they want to hold their distance lead. So, early dive, they go into Finn. Finn defensively nades himself. And would you look at this as well? This is a really interesting play. I'm going to pull back the frame. So, Finn defensively nades his team. And, for God's sake, okay, that's good enough. I mentioned before that the passive Lucio healing is pretty good with the nade. Like, it amps up the healing a little bit. If you're amp healing on the Lucio and you nade your team, like, it's so hard to kill through it. I don't know right now if Violet's on amp heal. He's definitely on heal. But Kilo drops his soldier healing pad, and all 3 of them are stood on the healing pad with the Ana, like, heal benefit as well. So this is a huge amount of AoE healing standing on this little pad. So much so that the Reiner's cleave damage just can't get through. So it's just keeping their team alive. So they save themselves through the dive. Kalush is going to go aggressive on the backline with Primal Rage. Reiner drops his Primal as well. And weirdly, Kaluj went for Kevster with the Primal, which is kind of wild. I'm going to guess it's because I don't see the timing on this quite, and I want this video to end at some point. Finn and Violet get anti, so I think he just peels to try and help his team. Kaluj drops unbelievably low and gets killed. Reiner gets Finn, proper kills Patapan eventually, with the Pulse Bomb, so nice use of the Pulse Bomb. And this makes us into a match. Kilo kills Reiner. So we're missing Finn on the shock, so they don't have to sustain anymore, but they have a lot of damage. Both DPS, and one of them is the soldier. They have their tank. No, they don't. The tank is respawned. They have Violet. But decent damage, decent sustain. Astro is desperately trying to, just keep contesting the cart before Reiner gets back, because we're so close to their spawn. If they can stop Jeff before this distance, they're going to be fairly happy. And Reiner can dive on and bubble Jeff in a moment. So between him and Kester, they're just trying to, keep this position. And they've done it. Reiner is going to get back, kills Kilo, and Jeff is walking back. Very good for the Gladiators. They forced out some ultimates, and they still retain their lead. And they're building up their ult bank now. They're almost back up to 4 ultimates again. That being said, Shock almost back up to 4 ultimates again. Proper has almost caught Kester again after using the Pulse Bomb so late. Kilo is ahead of Patapan on the Visor, but only by a tiny bit. Shu is going to get Nano up first. That's probably one of the big things. And Violet is a little bit behind on the beat. So we're looking for an early Nano from Shu here. Depending on how good the ult tracking is, they may be aware right now that Violet doesn't have beat. Kester whiffed another Pulse Bomb. It's a bit of a shame, because if one of these Pulse Bomb sticks, again, that is more distance for them. Astro dies with beat to Kilo. He pulls out his Visor. He gets his Visor before Patapan. Finn also catches up. Where does this Nano go from Shu? Shu Nano's Reiner. He doesn't save it from the Nano Visor. Why does he Nano Reiner here? I think just because he started to go low, they use it defensively rather than offensively. And this is going to cost them. Now, Reiner is not a bad target for the Nano. I've mentioned this before. But it's not as fight-winning as, the Nano Soldier. There's so much damage output. You're going to force out, the beat for the Nano Visor. It's guaranteed. If you Nano the Soldier, you're probably still going to force out the beat, because it's a hell of a lot of damage. Instead, Astro dies with beats. I know, they pulled the Visor. He might get, caught unaware by that. Maybe they don't quite ult track it very well, because, again, he gets it before Patapan. Shu keeps Reiner up with the Nano and immediately just gets slept by Finn. It's not a huge value target for them. When you've already got the Visor, I would have liked to see them invest it into the Soldier. I kind of see why they don't, though, because, Violet can just beat both the ults and counter them both. So in a way, it's nice that they split their ults up, but I don't know. I feel like using it defensively just to keep Reiner up was not the play, because he wasn't even diving at the time. He was just on the ground. He doesn't get the benefit of getting the Nano on his, butt stomp as he lands, which is a pretty big burst damage. So Patapan also dies by his own Helix Rocket, so he doesn't even Visor. Violet has not used Sound Barrier. He never had to use it. He was very disciplined here. And they haven't used Nano. But Kilo does Visor, properly uses his Pulse Bomb, and the ult bank is not too bad. You don't have the Nano, but you do have the Visor. That being said, it's going to be countered by the beat. But Finn's Nano can also be countered by Astro's beat. Finn is going on a dirty little flank at the moment. He's looking for an anti. Look where he is. He pushes into, the Gladiator spawn. They Nano Collusion again. He gets murdered. I don't dislike the Nano Winston. I have been saying, splitting your ultimates is sensible going into the beat. And this does somewhat work. Because remember, if they Nano Visor, you can counter it with one beat. They Nano Collusion, she got slept, and Astro has beated. Admittedly, this was to save Shu's life. So I think this was fair enough. Better to not let Shu die. Finn is going to get chased in the tiny room. Keeler is getting murdered as well. And this is just very, very close. Violet beats because he thinks this is winnable. Newsflash, it doesn't look winnable. They've lost Kilo, they've lost Finn. I think he tried to beat to save Finn, and this is looking wonderful for the Gladiators now. They've baited out the same two ultimates, and they look like they're going to come out on top here. And Proper just has to go insane here. Kaluge kills Astro, Reiner kills Violet. We're still, we're trading away. Kaluge then kills Patapan. He invests his Primal Rage. This is really interesting. Patapan is really hesitant to use his Visor at the moment. And it somewhat costs them. And by somewhat, it'll cost them a lot in the long run. Spoiler. I get why he tries to save this Visor, but at 3 versus 3 and neither team has the support, I would be putting my health station down and trying to Visor the enemy team. He's just running around this pillar at the moment. It feels like he's just not as in control as Kilo is. Reiner has not invested his Primal either. He feels like he doesn't need it. And now he's like, oh shit, I have to invest my Primal because, the Shock are winning this fight at the moment. They're about to beat our distance. I have to contest. So, again, Reiner is going to invest his Primal defensively to keep distance on the bot. They do kill Kaluge. But this is now spicy, spicy territory. In theory, this has come out well for the Gladiators. Patafan will get back before the fight really re-engages again. Shock will not fight without Kaluge. And they have Visor. There's no defensive up from the Shock. Kaluge doesn't have his Primal. Kilo will probably not get Visor in this fight. He will get one before the match, but he won't get it in this fight. And they have Pulse Bomb. So they have the ult advantage at the moment. Proper does have a Pulse Bomb, though. So Proper will probably be looking to Pulse Bomb Patafan. Patafan is on the biggest flank of all time. And he is slept and murdered. They miss the Pulse Bomb as well. And I'm sorry, Gladiators fans, it's time to get the Kleenex tissues out. This was probably the play that decides the mental booming that the Gladiators are about to experience. So, it's so risky for Patafan to make this play. I've mentioned this before. Finn is fucking insane. He's cracked. How many sleeps has he hit? He won the last map thanks to a sleep on Patafan with Nano Visor. He flanks around the back. I think what he's expecting, or what he's hoping for, is that either the Shock are still coming back through here, or they've already pushed down to the Jeff to try and stop the distance going any further. Instead, they're at this point, and he comes around the corner, he starts glowing and says, I've got you in my sights, and shouts it out. And immediately the entirety of the Shock turn around and murder him. If this was coordinated with Reiner diving and putting a bubble in between them so this couldn't happen, then all is good. All is gravy here. This makes sense, because they have no defensive ults. Kaluge will have to drop his bubble, assuming he has it, to stop this. But I think there was just some miscommunication here. Patafan just pulls out the Visor and just gets murdered. He literally pulls out 1v5, basically. Kevster is a little bit behind. He doesn't get his Pulse Bomb off. He does it in desperation, honestly. And Reiner doesn't put his bubble there. There's no protection for Patafan at the moment. Meanwhile, after the sleep happens, and I don't know where Shu and Astro are in this. I don't know if they're on Jeff or what. No one's on Jeff at the moment. So I don't know if they've got up to this high ground behind Patty, or they're, they were with Kevster. But they're antied as well, so this is utterly brutal. Astro does kill Proper. Okay, so they went all the way behind. So Proper tried to Pulse Bomb the supports, they killed them. So they're not with the team anymore, they're not supporting the 3 people up here. Patman was already dead to rights, but Reiner and Kevster also die. Gladiators invested 2 ultimates, 2 fairly big ultimates, at least, the Visor in this meta is huge. Shock invests a Pulse Bomb, they win the fight. And we have 2 minutes left. Kilo is going to get a Visor for the end. Patapan is not. Or it's going to be very late. He might get the Visor, actually. That's being a bit disingenuous again to Patapan. I wouldn't have minded seeing a swap here, though. To something that gets a little bit more value without the ultimate. I wouldn't have hated seeing the Widow here, honestly, or even the Ashe. Even the Genji just gone full dive and just tried to murder Finn as soon as possible. But we have 2 minutes, 0.9 meters away from the Shock. They have to contest for the Gladiators because, again, they don't have an ult bank. They just have to try and live. Patapan needs to make a big play. Kilo is about to get his visor, and then it's going to be go time for the Gladiators. Reiner has used his bubble very defensively. This is very bad. Kilo is going to get a free visor here. The anti-violet, big pressure from Kalush. He's put his bubble up. The DPS can't see anything. Kilo's pulled his visor. There is no bubble. Reiner is 2 HP. He can't contest Jeff. They've taken the lead as well. Proper has been pushing Jeff while this is going on, and they just have to give it up. They have to stay alive. And now the onus on the Gladiators to take this. Shu is hit with another anti. Finn is just insane. Proper kills Shu. And there's no healing left. They use Visor, and they win the fight. Bit of a misplay, I think, from Reiner here. Don't know what forced the bubble so early, but, you know, they had no defensive tool. They had no one contesting Jeff, so they lost the distance anyway, but I think they will go on to a losing fight. Really, that flank from Patapan, it cost them. They didn't really need to do that. The onus was on Shock to use their ultimates to beat the Gladiators. I get, again, I've said this a few times, why you want to be proactive. I don't hate the idea of making the play, but it seemed really uncoordinated. It was literally like, if Finn hits the sleep, we lose. And I don't think that was a risk that was worth taking for the Gladiators. And now the booming is starting. 1 minute left. The Shock are going to push this to the checkpoint. This is a lot of distance. They have ults coming up. They're about to get their beat. Primal's going to be up, which is good for sustaining. Proper has his pulse bomb. If he pulse bombs one of the supports, you're in trouble. Astro hasn't got the beat. Astro is dead. Shu is dead. And it's over. Finn, Nano's Kilo. He can start building to his visor. He's catching Patapan again to lap him. And Proper is just going insane. Between Proper, Kilo, and Finn, this team is actually mental. They're just, those three are bonkers. And this, I mean, the commentators keep talking about it. Shu nanoed Astro in this to keep him up again, just so that he didn't get staggered, so... Oh, I say that, he nanoed him. I think this might be a fat finger. Where was he? Where was Shu? Oh, I think... We'll try and slow this down, maybe. I think Shu tries to nano Patapan in the window here and catches Astro instead. Or has he already done it? He's already done it. This must be a fat finger. There's no way this isn't a fat finger. He must nano Astro in the spawn. Because, yeah, he was dead already, so it wasn't to keep him alive. It's just a fat finger. So, Gladiators now... The head is fully off. It's so boomed at the moment. There's skull matter flying everywhere. You know, hair is going everywhere. It's just... It's not a pretty sight. They've lost their nano visor. They do have visor. They're about to get beat, though. But the ults are in Shock's favour. And they know that they probably have 2 fights before they get to this distance. If you can hit a pulse bomb, you'll win it anyway. Astro beats again, but doesn't catch Shu. Good bubble from Kalush, I guess. Violet beats, hits everyone but Kalush. And Kilo kills Patapan. He doesn't visor. Kilo just beats him before he visors. And there's 1 second left. So I don't know what happens to Patapan. He doesn't use his visor here. Like, you know, you have to pop the ultimates. It was, you know, either lose or use your ult. To be fair, I think they were losing anyway. Patapan has now pulled out his ult into 5 people, but it's over for map 4. And as I said, look at the faces of the players. You know, Patapan's not happy. Kev's just wondering what's going on. Reiner looks dejected. Whereas, look at Kilo. He's a little happy chappy at the moment. He's realised he can turn it around. Also, you know, Violet's been here before. Like, he knows the scene. He's an experienced player. I don't know who Shock calls them the Shock at the moment, but they seem fairly happy with things at the moment. They never look like they were, you know, boomed themselves. They always look like they had the belief that they could pull this back. This takes us to a 5th and final map, the Match Point map. It's another control map. This is Lijiang Tower, a map where multiple different comps and styles can be run. Can the LA Gladiators stop the reverse sweep from happening for a 2nd week in a row? Or will the San Francisco Shock complete the reverse sweep, and continue their unbeaten streak? Let's find out. So we enter map 5, and you're going to notice something. We've had a substitution. I've been raving over Kilo for most of this map, but he drops out for Sam. Sam, famous for his great Genji play, his Echo play as well. Clearly they have some other comps thought out for Lijiang Tower. We're going to start off on Night Market, which is actually Day Market on the L2 beta at the moment. No substitutions for the Gladiators, so again it's a statement of intent that they're probably going to keep the same stuff going on. Right, let's try and pull ahead a little tiny bit. Come on. There we go. This is them coming out. Sorry, it's a bit further forward than I wanted. So yeah, the Gladiators do come out on the same stuff they've been running basically through the entire map. Reiner is on the Winston, Shu, Ana, Astro, Lucio, Patapan, Soldier, Kevster, Tracer. Shock have a new look, and by new look, it's somewhat similar to the look that they showed on the very first Control map. They have Finn back on the Moira, the great pisser herself, Moira. So they have this Moira-Lucio backline, very resistant to a dive, and this is a very aggressive dive from the Gladiators. If you get onto Moira, she can just fade away. If you get onto Lucio, he can boop you and speed away. You know, there's a lot of answers in this backline to surviving the dive. It's kind of the nightmare for Tracer, honestly. Instead, though, of having the Reaper and Doom, they've gone with the traditional Winston, and they're running their own dive. But this time it's way more aggressive for the dives than the Gladiators. They have, proper on the Tracer, they have Sam on his Genji. So, on the Gladiators, you have Patapan doing all this consistent damage from range, and you've probably got Kevster, Reiner, and Astro being a part of like the 3-man dive team. The Shock, instead, they're going to basically deathball the dive, because Violet can take part in the dive, Finn can be part of the dive because she can fade in with them, Kaluge can leap, Proper can blink, and Genji can dash. This is insane gap closing. They are going to go so aggressively onto Shu, presumably. Or even Patapan. And they're going to struggle for answers. I think this was the intention, at least, of this comp. So the Shock have come round to the point immediately. And they're just, you know, they're gesturing at the moment. They're like, we're just poking, we don't want to be on the point yet. Moira's going to run out of piss if we go out too soon. And Gladiators are content to have this side of the map anyway, because the Soldier likes to shoot from distance. Sam is going to put some flanking pressure on, and get murdered for it. Not a great start for Sam. Astra then kills Kaluge as well, because, you know, why not? He kills Violet as well, just, you know, casual 3k for the Lucio player. And he's 62% to beat, and this was not a great dive from the Shock, mainly because only Sam went in on his own. I think the intention was for Sam to just build up some, you know, blade charge. He got a little bit greedy and just got murdered. Remember as well, it's pretty hard for players to come in cold. I presume he's been doing some practice in, you know, the practice room, but he's not had match practice. So it's kind of, you know, ballsy from the Shock to just bring him back in cold. The Gladiators have played 4 maps already. And it's a bit of a rough start. Great Helix from Patapan, picks up Violet. And that's the push gone again. No ultimates. And they can just build up more and more ult charge. Get to this 5 ult bank. And then they can take the Shock apart as they wish. And what's worse for the Shock at the moment is the fights haven't even been competitive, so they're not really building up ults themselves. They're just close to the Coalescence, and they have Pulse Bomb. So here comes the Coalescence. Now, there is a weakness for the Coalescence, again, in case people are not aware of this and haven't been watching it. So Moira can fade, which is an escape tool. She just, like, disappears off the map. And then she can appear in a certain distance away from herself. She can also jump now and, like, sort of float in the air after this, so she can reach high ground off this fade. It's like, almost like a dive. But when she's coalescing, she can no longer fade, so she becomes a bit of a squishy target. She doesn't really have any, you know, defensive abilities for herself, so the team have to protect Finn here. So they pop out Coalescence. Shu nanos Patapan, but he dies in the Coalescence. Bit of a flub here. Kevster misses his Pulse Bomb, I think. Proper doesn't get any value for his Pulse Bomb either, but honestly, the damage is being done. And Shock win this with 2 ultimates, but basically just the Coalescence, and they trade it for Nano, which is not a bad trade, honestly. Astro doesn't beat it. I don't know where they were on ults here, actually. Let me just go back, because this is kind of interesting. So Astro doesn't have his beat. That's the answer to the question. So Patapan gets nanoed, and he just gets hard focused down. Reiner dies, Astro hasn't got his beat. So he gets his beat at the end of the fight, after it's over, so he saves it. The other thing to note here is the difference in ult charges between the other DPS. So Patapan is 95% to Visor, Sam is 59 to Blade. That's a huge difference. Patapan is so... It's so much easier to put out consistent damage on Soldier than it is on Genji, and he's just getting that ult charge up way quicker. So they're going to have Visor before they have Blade. It does give Astro a question of, what do I save my beat for? The answer is almost certainly the Blade in this comp, so he could just sit there with his beat, because what else are they going to kill them with, really? Coalescence, maybe. The Pulse Bomb, well, you're going to be dead anyway. Primal, you can boop them away, sleep them. Without the Nano, your beat kind of is set if you want to cancel, a certain ult on the other team. Kalushi slept, but he primals. Patapan has got the Nano. No, not the Nano. What's he got? Oh, he's got the beat, so Astro does beat this. Violet counter beats it, that's fine. They force out the other support ult. And then Patapan visors afterwards. Okay, I like this. This was a nice play. They use 3 ultimates. They burn 2 ultimates of the shock, but they're gaining more and more time. And Sam still hasn't got his Blade yet, but he's not going to be accompanied by a Nano. So, it might be a little bit, it might be difficult to get some kills here. It could be kited with a boop from Astro, but Genji normally, they're smart. Kevs just somehow threads the needle with the Pulse Bomb, doesn't stick anyone, but he does get the kill into Violet, and that's push over. They go into this tiny little room, they don't want to take all the damage in the world. Shu hits a big nade, they throw a Pulse Bomb in there, and they just clean up the team. Sam gets his Blade, but he's returned to the spawn with it. And they're just clearing up the players again. So, 1 ultimate, just Pulse Bomb, win the fight. And now, it's going to go up to 90% before the shock, have a chance to fight. And this Coalescence, the second one, has taken a while to build up, honestly. The fights have been too quick for Finn to get value. In fact, Shu has built up another Nano faster than Finn built up a Coalescence. So, the Nano Reiner, this time, there's no sleep anymore, so I like the Nano and the Winston here. There's not a lot they can do about it. They can fade away. But they need to get to the point at this point. Sam gets stuck in a corner. He pulls out his weeb stick and just gets murdered. Shu is killed, but they trade out Finn. Finn uses his Coalescence, but it's too late. And, they have to use the ults. It's too late. They're about to lose the point anyway. Their one chance now is Kalush somehow gets a Primal and, lives for a year and, the LA Gladiators disconnect. Shu comes back on the Moira just for speed here. But they can only touch the point slowly, and they're slowly losing their health. Just trickling onto the point. And there we go. Shu also kills proper. And Sam gets a double kill with Moira. And reapply your cranial matter to your head, Gladiators. The shock, that comp doesn't look that good for them. They seem a little bit weak on it. And they seem to enjoy running it on the control map. So, if they run it again, you fancy the Gladiators. It looks like this comp has an edge over it. Sam got no value out of the Genji, and what else is he going to really pull out? He could pull out an Echo, but you are not going to be able to healing the Echo that much with a Moira Lucio comp. So we go to Gardens now, and the Shock run the same comp again. If I were a Shock fan, my alarm bells would be going off. This has not looked good on Oasis. This has not looked good on the first map of Lijiang Tower. There's nothing to say it's going to look good here. And immediately Kalush is hit with an anti. He's getting pressured. Finn is at half health already. Kalush is just getting melted and he's dead. Violet dies to Kester. He kills off Finn. It just falls apart. As much as Moira can pump out, great AoE heals, and, this is a death ball type comp, you're so susceptible to just getting naded once and like your comp falling apart. And also they just don't have the damage that they have with Patavan on the Soldier. The Soldier is so much damage. Anyway, they come back in with this comp, they believe in it. Aggressive dive, Violet kills Patavan. Very nice pick. Don't know how he kills him, honestly. I guess Shu has used his nade offensively again, rather than defensively, but either way, they've picked up Sam on the flip side. Pulse Bomb again from Kester. I have to admit, you don't expect your choice to, stick every Pulse Bomb. I don't know what the average stick rate is in Owl, but I imagine it's... Oh, plucking numbers out of the air. It must be around 40 to 50% is going to be my guess. Kester does not stick many Pulse Bombs at the end of this game. He gets one kill in the previous map, but he wasn't a stick. And he kind of whiffs this one as well. Kalush is 1 HP, but Moira can just, heal that straight back up again. But Violet gets killed. Another whiffed Pulse Bomb from Proper. And things look great for the Gladiators. 34%. They've used just Primal and Pulse Bomb. Shock used Pulse Bomb, but they're nowhere near the Blade. They're not that close to the Primal. They're about to get their support ult up as well. So we hit the Coalescence. We hit the Nano onto Reiner here. Astro immediately beats to keep up Patapan. Kester doesn't get the beat. Violet is going to have to counter beat because look how low Finn's health is here. He just gets it off and he lives. Huge from Violet here. And they clean up from this. How did they clean up this? Like, what is going on here? So Reiner is nanoed, but they're just ignoring him. Just ignore the Reiner challenge. They're just hard engaging on Patapan. I think this was the goal of this comp. Remove Patapan from the equation. He's the damage. Then we can clean up Shu afterwards. So Shu nanos Reiner. Patapan gets killed 95% to his visor. Shu must also be with him and just gets cleaved through with the Coalescence and the damage from Winston. Because remember, this is a nice thing about this comp. Honestly, I should have mentioned this a while ago. I didn't think about mentioning it for some weird reason. When Moira is coalescing with her, let's get a nice colour, a Piss and Vimto beam, this goes through shields. It pierces through the shield, so a Winston bubble will not save you. If Genji dashes through with his sword, that also goes through a bubble. Winston's Zap Cannon also goes through a bubble. So Reiner's bubble here isn't that effective. Like, it only really stops Proper's damage, and he can blink in and out of the bubble himself. And Violet's shots, but he's going to speed through the bubble with the rest of the comp. Reiner doesn't get a lot of value here being on the Winston, other than the fact that their team are going to stay clumped together so he can jump in. But the bubble itself is actually kind of worthless. Whereas Kalush can get pretty big value off his bubble. He can block the Anaheals. He can block the Soldier damage. Again, he'll block some of the Trace damage. He'll block some of the Lucio damage. But that's a mirror between the two comps. So I think this is the big brain part of this comp. Is that Reiner's bubble doesn't get that much advantage. And they can just blow someone up with this aggressive dive. The problem is if they don't blow the person up, then, you're fucked. And I think I do like this look more with a Genji Winston than I do with a Reaper Doom. It's still looking good for the Gladiators, though. They have nanoed, but it's fine. They built up some Primal. They're about to get Visor. Violet had to use Beat as a counter, so there's no real counterplay to your Visor. That being said, the counterplay, I suppose, is going to be Primal Range plus a Blade. Get the Blade out, get on Patapan, deflect him. Kalush can also Primal to take some more hits and just start slashing him away. But Gladiators basically need one fight win here to win the map. They could also just wait for 5 ults. The onus again is on Shock to get this. If Kevster can hit a huge pulse bomb, it would force the Shock to invest all their ults into this. So aggressive dive there. They pull out the Blade, go behind them, Shu immediately dead. They went on Shu instead. Patapan pulls out his Visor. But Sam, he's showing why he pulled out Genji. Gets both the supports, does some additional damage, Proper eventually kills Patapan with the visor, and he doesn't get any value off the visor. Again, it's kind of awkward to get some value off the visor. It's not awful. There are some targets that you'd expect them to, kill. But if Kalusia's still got his shield up, that shield is going to eat up most of the visor. Finn can then fade if, someone gets close. Violet can speed boost around the corner and wall ride around the map. Proper can blink, onto Megas, he can recall, and Genji has a deflect. So they do pick up Genji on, the flip side, but it was too late. Their team gets murdered. But still, it was one ultimate for one ultimate. It's not the end of the world. But again, I wouldn't have minded seeing some swaps here. One interesting swap, which I don't know if Patrana has an option to him, is I wouldn't have mind seeing going over to the Echo. A lot of teams have been running Echo Tracer into Genji Tracer as a counter to it, because Genji can't really interact with the Echo that well. Shu on the Ana can, throw out a lot of healing onto the Echo, and you can potentially just, hit a bunch of stickies onto Kaluj, blow up his shield, blow him up afterwards. And they don't have, a nano to protect against that. They don't have the nade to protect against it. They don't have that, super burst healing that the Ana can offer with a nade and a shot. It's a lot of healing, but it's Death Ball. And Death Ball, not great into Echo, because the stickies will hit other people. But Patapan is staying on the Soldier. They believe they can win with this comp. Reiner's obviously going to stick on the Winston. Again, I wouldn't have minded seeing Reiner swap off this either. I don't know what they would have gone to, though. It's kind of really interesting. I think, in theory, the Gladiators comp will beat the Shock comp most of the time. I'm trying to run, the ideal scenarios where the simulations, work. And I just can't help but think if Shu just hits a great anti onto the backline, they just die. If they hit an anti and dive, they're going to have a bad time. Finn can fade, but Violet will probably get killed. Well, maybe they're not that scared of it. And there's not as much CC, it really is just Ana CC. It could have been worth trying to run the Brig into it, but... It's an interesting thought experiment. I guess one thing that they could have done is they could have gone Hangzhou's Spark route. If you ran Pharah Mercy, you would have probably a pretty bad time with the shot comp. They would have to rush whoever was, not in the air. But they really could not interact with the Pharah, and eventually you'd get a barrage and you would just murder a target. But it's definitely winnable, I think, with the Gladiators comp. But there's definitely answers in the Shock comp for what they're doing. With Pulse Bomb again from Proper. Reiner has pulled out his Primal, so is Kaluj. And Kaluj is just keeping Reiner away. It's keep away, keep away. Kevster kills Proper. Why an advert now? How many smacking adverts do we need to get? Okay, one moment. Okay, apologies again. I might use YouTube Premium next week, we'll see. I probably won't. Anyway, there's his 2 picks now. They've been able to disengage. They've lived long enough that the Moira presumably decided to run out of pay. I think Astra has booped Finn off the map, which is huge. Finn had probably Coalescence. Well, you and me Coalescence. Let me go back. Yes, I think Finn coalesces, so he can't fade anymore. Astra boops Finn off the map. And they lose Coalescence. So the beat doesn't matter. The beat will not keep them alive. Violet beats only 3 people. And that's the last of their healing. Shu does go down to Cluj, but... Astro? Are you about to die here? You have the beat. Astro dies to Sam. He dies in the beat! No! No! Say it ain't so. He Ajaxes the beat. It's huge from Sam again. He was so rough on the first point, but that's huge. Cutting down Astro mid-beat. If he gets this beat off, Patapan stays alive, probably Kevster, Reiner, and they win this fight. Instead, only the sound barrier from Violet goes through. And it gives enough sustain to the team to live. And during this, by the way, the Gladiators cap. So... that's nice. At least they're not going to come back in at 90% or more. But they have to win this last fight, and they're going to be trickling in And they only have a Pulse Bomb. They will get Nano. But who do you Nano here? Probably Patifan, right? For damage. Sam not a million miles away from the blade. This is close. Again, small misplay / big plays. Kessa's looking for a Pulse Bomb. Great marking from Proper. So well done from Proper. Like, he doesn't necessarily 1v1 Kessa here. Like, he's with his entire team. But to follow up the kill there, recognize that Kessa has the Pulse Bomb. It's a win condition for the LA Gladiators, and they just kill him. Sam, admittedly, has his blades. He's antied on 1 HP. He kills Shu, but then dies to Astro. Again, small differences. If Shu kills Sam before he dies, this is turnable. Patman gets the visor, doesn't get a kill. Can't get through the barrier. Astro gets another kill off. And now, things look bad. Sam is going to come back with the blade. Shu's gone over to the Moira for speed. Astro is just trying to, touch the point for as long as he can. Kefta hits his Pulse One to Finn, so the healing from the shock is gone now. The big healing, it's just Violet. Violet, oh no, he doesn't boop Astro off, he just kills him with the boop. And now Sam is the guardian of the point. He has his weep stick out, he's just slashing Rhina's HP total down. That's fine, didn't need to get a kill. No one can touch. And we go to the final point of a 5-map series. Shock finally make this comp work. It just took some heroic plays from Sam. Sam and Proper just go insane on that point. Killing Astro in the beat, brutal. And also, getting the kill onto Shu. Finn is going Ajax, well done. More banter onto Astro. Ha 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 ha. In Spanish, I can read Spanish. You know what? Friendly banter. I like it. Okay. Let's pause this as we come out. So, Gladiators have finally decided, after all this time, it's time to swap up our comp. And it is Control Center. This is a very unique map. Very close quarters. Not renowned for being a great Winston map, but teams have run Winston, including the Shock, who are about to run Winston. The Gladiators have come out with their Doom comp again. However, they are now running the Reaper. Not Zarya Reaper, they're running Doom Reaper. They're keeping their Ana Lucio backline, and they've got Kevster on the Genji. Again, this is some good nano targets. Nano Reaper for Nano Death Boss and the Beyblade, very strong. Nano Blade, obviously very strong. But it's going to be hard for Patipan to get into the backline of the Shock and, murder them. Because he hasn't got this bubble. That being said, the gaps aren't huge. If you play in this, corridor, Reaper can easily, sneak into the backline with a quick teleport and fade back out again. So I don't hate this here as compared to, University, where I didn't really like it on the Shock. And they have in their advantage, the collusion's coming out on Winston. Again, Monkey doesn't do great into Reaper. I know, ha 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 ha. Running Winston into Reaper, lol, lol. It's not too bad. Winston can do some, shield dancing to mitigate the damage from Reaper. But the gap is so small that Reaper will just walk through the barrier and start murdering Collusion. Collusion's not going to be thrilled by being on the Winston into Reaper. Sam has pulled out the Echo, so this is very interesting. I did say that he can play Echo and Genji, or at least he's shown this at Contenders level. And he's got a really, really good Echo. Echo is a bit of a weird hero. So you normally say aerial heroes aren't great on this map. Like, it's not renowned for being very good here because it's quite a low ceiling. However, Echo has a really nice burst combo of throwing out some stickies and then, doing your super signaling beam or whatever the hell it's called. I don't know what it's called. And you can just melt a target down. Such as a Doomfist. So, like, she's so good into tanks. There's very few tanks that can counterplay into the Echo. You kind of need your DPS to step up and, kill the Echo. But Genji and Reaper are not going to do great into Echo. It's really going to be on Shu to, keep this Echo in check. And also, the Gladiators comp wants to play in this, almost death brawl type thing. They want to play in this closed corner where the Reaper gets value, the Doom will get value, the Genji can get pretty good value in the corridor. You throw a bunch of stickies into the corridor, it's going to hit, like, Ryan, it's going to hit Patty, it's going to hit Kevster. Sam is going to build up insane ult charge. And it's going to be so hard to shoot to heal this off. He's probably going to have to defensively nade and then use the AoE healing from Lucio to, you know, get them back up again. So it gives Shu some thought about where do I throw my ante. Also in the shop, they're running Tracer again. That's not that unusual for Control Center to see the Tracer. You can flank through Dark, you can flank through White, you can flank around the health pack as well. So the decent flanking options for Tracer. And I think at this point they've cottoned on that Shu is almost always going to be on this Ana pick. And they can just harass Shu for this entire game. And they stayed on this Moira Lucio, so they seem to be pretty reluctant to switch off to some control points, especially control points without large amounts of verticality. They seem to prefer this Moira comp. So again, we're going to have a very quick coalescence being built up. They have a lot of survivability to a dive. But Gladiators aren't running like a complete dive. This is more like a death ball. Almost more like a rush, so to speak. So Kevster goes on this little flank. Proper's already on his own flank. And the Shocks see this. They don't really want to go into this area. They want to go into White with a Reaper, a Doom. And they're reluctant to do so. Again, they don't want to fight until the control point really unlocks because they have this burst healing, potentially burst damage as well with the Echo. So they're just, you know, posturing a little bit. Kevster's just trying to build up this blade. Winston very useful for building up blades into. Shu's already used his healing. Kaluge is antied. Kaluge don't give a fuck. Kaluge is diving in. He is like, you know, 80% HP, but still 80% HP straight in. I don't know what causes this, you know, dive. I don't really know what's coordinating onto this. I presume it's Sam going in with the stickies as well. And Sam's focus right now is kill Patiphan or force out the fade because he's going to make Kaluge's life a misery. So forces the fade out, but all that happens is Patiphan fades into dark. There's a Mega in there, so we can pick up a Mega. And he's out of the way from Sam. Sam's using his beam now, but doesn't get much value. Again, this was a stickies into a corridor. Look at how much ult charge he's getting. It's insane. And it's a little bit split up from the Gladiators now. The team is, you know, split apart. Shu had almost flipped round to their side of the map. Kaluge kills him. Whereas Reiner is on the other side looking for heals. Patiphan is still low. And they clear them up. Again, without the replay view, it's very hard to see exactly what goes on there. Because it was almost like two death balls just munch into one another. But Patty didn't get that much value on the replay. It's only 41% to the Death Blossom. Kevster got to 6% to the Blade, just, you know, throwing shurikens at Kaluge. Kaluge probably got the most value out of everyone. He's 73% to a Primal, you know, just cleaving through their entire comp. But nice play from Sam to, you know, recognize that Reaper is the potential weakness of the shot comp. They need Kaluge to stay up. He'll give a lot of ult charge to Finn. And they need his barrier. So, remove the big weakness. Again, Patiphan is using like Reaper sniper mode at the moment just to, you know, pepper away at a distance, but he can't get much value doing this. Drops back for healing. Reiner uses a supercharged punch, kills Sam. That's brilliant. That's Patiphan free now to do what he wants. You're not going to have this annoying mosquito in the sky, you know, flying around. Forces Coalescence out. Shu nanos. Who do you nano here? Patiphan. So a lot of damage being offered for the Reaper here. He can probably like two shots. In fact, probably one shot someone if you get a great headshot. But more realistically, it'll be two shotting squishies. Violet, you know, responds with the beat. Astro beats himself. His beat misses Shu again, though. And Shu is killed. Proper is just mental. Now, this is a little bit of a weakness of the Gladiators comp. I have to be completely honest with you. I'm surprised there wasn't some sort of switch, but again, I guess they believe in their comp. Doom doesn't do great into Tracer. Like, you can't really interact with the Tracer. I mean, again, not a lot of tanks can interact with the Tracer, but she can just blink around your power block, keep peppering you. She can chase you as you dive back into the backline trying to look for heals. She's just going to be harassing Ana the entire time. And that's all Proper is doing. He's just harassing Reiner and Shu, and I guess Astro as well. Can also harass Patiphan when he comes out of his fade as well and fades back into the team. And there's no one really here to deal with the Tracer. Like, Reiner is trying to push, Winston out of his bubble. Patman's trying to get onto the Winston as well. Kester is just throwing shurikens and trying to build up a blade. He's not really matching Proper here. So Proper is just having a free reign of it at the moment. And you cannot let Proper just freely run into your team. They do pick up Violet, but again, it's not a good trade for you. Patman kills Finn down. That is a good trade for you. He has the Death Blossom. Kester pulls out the blade because he's not happy this is won yet. And the Shock are like, okay, we're out. If we lose 2 supports and you pull out the blade because you're scared, then it's go time. And now the Gladiators have responded to this. They've been forced into another switch. Shu has gone off the Ana. He can't stay alive into this dive. Like, Sam's probably also harassing him as well. Kalush can get on top of him. Finn could even get on top of him. Like, this is just such a hard comp to live as an Ana. And it finally, dawns on them that he can't stay alive anymore for long enough to get value. And he swaps off. So they're now mirroring this Moira Lucio comp. And I had heard during the early stages of the our beta, the scrims, a lot of teams were running Lucio and Moira because they couldn't survive the pure aggressive dive. And I guess this is what Shock have been finding a lot of value on in the control points. Having this super aggressive dive and just taking very quick fights and just trying to roll over the enemy support line. Really nice that their pressure has finally forced Gladiators to, bend. And now we are on the comp for the Gladiators. It's basically the same as the Shocks on the first point of Oasis. And I hated it then, and I'm not thrilled with it now. They have Doom, Reaper, Moira, Lucio. I would love Ryan, I don't know if this is in his, hero pool, to pick up the Zarya. It would look, I think, so much better. It would be so much more worrying for Kalush if Patman was bubbled into him. He gets, chunked down. This will give Ryan a load of energy. He can just melt down the bubble. And Kalush would just have a miserable time. Like, you could really focus down Kalush. Proper then is going to struggle into Shu and Astro to, get a kill. I don't know about Kester into this on the Genji, but again, it's another threat. Like, I wouldn't have minded him going to this Ghost Bubble comp here. I'm not saying it's the perfect answer to this, but I think it would have been an answer. But this would have forced Reiner to go back to the spawn, so he sticks on this for a while. Some nice cleanup kills from the Gladiators anyway. This is what you need to do when, you've lost 2 fights in the bounce. Get some stagger kills, get as much ult charge as you can. Because Violet died really early, Astra is going to get the beat sooner. So they're going to have an answer soon. There goes the Death Blossom. Sam copies Reaper to save himself. Very nice. Unfortunately, because there's no Nano anymore, Death Blossom doesn't do, all the damage it's worth. And he doesn't get a kill into this. In fact, let me just slow this down. This is kind of interesting. I like, again, the aggression from Gladiators. They're very proactive here. They realize that they only have an ult. I don't know if they've miscounted this. They're probably aware that Sam has an ult as well, or is closing in on the ultimate. And they just want to take this fight very quickly. Just, blow them up now. Send them back to the spawn again. Don't let them get any ult charge. And sort of surprise them. The amp speed in the Reaper here, like he's preparing for it. They look like, we're holding on the point. Then they push the go button. Kevster is so low at this point. He just gets the copy up in time. Copies Patspan. I don't know how low his HP drops because, this great animation appears on his screen. But he definitely dropped low. And, yeah, it's Proper is low. But he can fade out of it. So, Proper can fade. Finn can fade. Violet does get chunked down. Kalush does get chunked down. I feel like to do this, you kind of have to wait for someone to have invested their cooldown before you Death Blossom. There's so much of the Shock that can just escape. Like, you have to force either, Proper to fade. Maybe he has faded already. Maybe that's who they were going on, because he does take a lot of damage. They have to force, the Winston bubble, or force his leap. It does a lot of damage, but it just doesn't get the kills, and you really need to get the kills on this if you're going aggressively. Sam, pops back with his own Death Blossom. Sorry, he pops back with the Echo ult, trying to get his own Death Blossom. Patman has to back off. And we're sort of on as even again. He doesn't get his Death Blossom. Okay, let's take us out of this speed again. So again, it's 1-for-1 ults. But Patpan dies to Kalush, so we're no longer 1-for-1. How does he die? He fades out. Astro is on this flank with Reiner. And is this the Moira Orb? I think it is. Shu's Moira Orb goes to Reiner to keep him alive. And then Patman is just burst down. Oh, Proper, by the way, has swapped off Trace, so he's now gone into the Reaper. Again, this is just, it's too much for them to get through. Like, for Tracer, you can't really kill the Moira, you can't really kill the Lucio. Get onto the Reaper. Now, we're on a true death ball now for the Shock. Speed the Reaper into your backline. It's really death ball v death ball. I don't even know what happens to him here. He just gets chunked down. He fades back and just doesn't get healed up in time. And I think Finn had already thrown out his Healy Orb. So that's a lot of the damage from the Gladiators gone now. Because Sam can put out a lot of damage on the Echo. Proper can put obviously a lot of damage out on the Reaper. Kevster can't on the Genji, so this is really the odd one out now. Is who does Kevster kill here? Like, you're not going to receive the Nano. It's hard to kill a Moira or a Lucio into this. I almost feel like they should just fully invest into, like, some sort of Death Ball. Even like the Soldier Reaper Zarya Death Ball type thing, but they just don't seem to get that much value off the blade. There goes the focusing beam that just murders people, and the Shock are going to pick up the point again. But, you know, not the end of the world. They traded 1-for-1 ults. Obviously, you would like from the Gladiators that the Shock overinvest ults here. But it's not the end of the world. It's not like the Gladiators invested 3 ults and lost. They're coming close to their blade, they're coming close to their coalescence, and they're beat. And Shu's, you know, I think Shu was 50% behind on coalescence when they started this previous fight. He's now 12% behind. So Reiner's received a supercharged punch. He invests 2 cooldowns his and just absolutely mows down Proper. This is really cool, actually. Ballsy as hell as well, by the way, because I don't know if he has any cooldowns at this point. But they, you know, I guess they've decided they're going to beat engage this. So he uses his Slice Command around the corner. They don't expect, he's got his powered up punch right now. He cancels his powered up punch, sorry, he cancels his slam midway, and then uses his full punch. And this is really, really cool. This is cool movement tech for Doomfist. So he's going to cancel it around here. If he just punched this way, like, you can hit someone on the back wall there, but more likely, they're just going to go down this corridor and you're not going to get the full stun off on your punch. If he comes from this angle, like a perpendicular angle, one, the Shock do not expect this. Like, they think he's just gone back for heals. He's going to move quickly, he's going to punch, and look at the walls this way. Sure, you can go into this corridor, but they're not playing there. So he just catches Proper out, completely unaware. Smacks him, stuns him, murders him. Dashes through with Kevster as well. Excellent. They beat as well to make sure that Reiner stays alive, because I think he uses all 3 cooldowns at this point. Finn pulls out the Coalescence as well, but, you know, advantage Gladiators at the moment. The disadvantage is going to come in a moment when Violet gets a later beat than Astro, so they're going to have more overheals than the Gladiators will. But Shu could eat away at that when he gets his Coalescence. So, great start to this fight for the Gladiators. So, Finn is Coalescence now. Finn's Coalescence is ending. Violet is now beated. Shu's Coalescing. So, they flip the ults around, basically. But Shock have 1 less player. And now this is just pure deathmatch. Kalush gets focused down and killed. Kevster gets his blade off this, very nice. And now it's just the support plus Sam up. And Sam has been stunned, presumably by Reiner. And this is where I think we get a bit of a misplay again. This is kind of an over-investment of ults. Kevster pulls out his blade. He's been building this up for the entire game. Like, you spent, what, 100 and... I can do maths. 115, right? 15 milli? 115%. So he's not going to get another blade at this rate into this comp. They only have Sam up. They have Finn and Violet. They don't have defensive ults anymore. They've used both support ults. This should be clean up from the LA Gladiators. They still have all 5. And they clean up the fight with Blade. He kills Violet. Proper's like, alright, see you later. He was coming back to the fight, I guess. But I think the Gladiators would have won this without the Blade. I don't think they needed to invest this. And again, this is now somewhat alarm bell times for the Gladiators. Shock are in a territory that they are potentially a fight winning away. It's probably 2 fights realistically at 73%. But they force out a Gladiator DPS ult. So they use 2 ultimates, Gladiators use 3. We're about to get both DPS ults. Kaluge engages in. Where is Patapan at this point? Patapan is kind of on a little flank at the moment. So they've decided here, it looks like from Reiner, he's going to punch Kaluge, stun him. So Patapan should probably turn around and start shooting Kaluge and put the pressure on him. He actually gets a miss on the wall, so I don't think Kaluge gets stunned here. So he goes onto the squishies with Patapan instead. And Sam dies. This is wonderful. Don't care about the Doom ult. Didn't ask. Reiner goes aggressive with this again, rather than defensive. That is bullshit, by the way. I'm going to call bullshit. I think this is an unintentional bug. So I'm going to slow this down. I've said this multiple times. Moira has a fade ability. Was this a superpowered punch? It isn't, is it? You know what? I might not call shenanigans. But does Moira get stunned here? Like, in my world, I think she fades out of a stun there. But I don't really know how long the Doomfist uncharged punch is. Maybe it's like a half a second or something. So maybe that's not shenanigans. But it kind of looked like she faded before she really took the damage. And, you know, lives on way more health than she should have done. Either way, Patapan cleans up proper, so things are looking pretty good. But the DPSs are very low at the moment. Kestra is 1 HP, Patapan is like, 20. Violet kills Kestra on the flank, Finn kills Patapan. And Kaluge is just primaling in the backline. They're somehow turning it around. Reiner runs out of HP. I don't know what happens here. I don't know what pulls the supports apart here. How Patapan and Kestra just die. I guess Shu's run out of P at this point. But it's crazy. How many picks they get? And they just, it's just not good enough. And basically, Shock have won this fight with just the Primal Rage. Gladiators use, Doom Ult, but who cares? Kester has now realised he's seen the light. Genji is no longer the pick. We're going to go on to Tracer. In part because he wants to get back to this fight quickly. But it's too late. The Shock clean up this. Almost a neutral fight. I know they use Primal, but they kept both their DPS ults. They also got picked early, which is kind of crazy. Again, huge outplay from the supports here. Finn and Violet, they do really well there. And now a lot is riding on Death Blossom and Coalescence. But the Shock have that as well. If Astro can get his beat first, maybe he beats to save off the 2 DPS ults. As long as Shock don't layer their 2 DPS ults, they're probably fine. Sam copies the Reaper again. And this is scary. If both of them get a Death Blossom. So, at this call, the Gladiators, they drop off. Quite an early gain from the Shock, but not too early. So, they're just sitting back. Sam Death Blossoms because he's about to run out of the copy anyway, the duplicate. Kester went round on the flank to touch the point. Very nice from Kester. He had to do that. We're now getting Coalescence and Sound Barrier. The Sound Barrier, what happens to it? He uses it. It hits all 5. Well done. So they layer their support up to use both Coalescence and Sound Barrier. It counters Finn's ult, it's countered Sam's, but they have nothing for Proper now. It's Patapan versus Proper. Who gets more out of the Death Blossom? Proper uses his first. He's proactive and gets the kills. Patapan uses his reactively and doesn't. Also, Violet gets the beat up in time. And Grey Matter is all over the walls now as the Gladiators are reverse swept for the 2nd week in a row. all the sad faces, and it came down to some really small things. They could have won Route 66. I think the one on Colosseo was a misplay, but they had a chance on Colosseo, definitely. And they had an incredible chance on Control Center. I don't know how both DPS died. We don't have the replay viewer, sadly. They're just aggressively forwards with Reiner. I don't know what's pulled Shu and Astro away. I don't know if someone... I guess it was Kaluge Primaling. They were just trying to hold the point. But a bit of a, a split between the team, and it's cost them. They lost the fight that they probably shouldn't have lost, and it causes them to lose the map. So again, we'll look through the other results for the other teams from the NA division. It started off with the Washington Justice stomping on Paris, honestly. Decay was phenomenal in this game on Tracer. I've never seen a Tracer display, I think, as dominant as I saw Decay there. Certainly not in this season. Florida Mayhem overcame the XL. They seem to have some real problems in their team synergy at the moment. Fuel have bounced back from that surprising loss in the first week in the Texas homestand and beat Toronto, a surprisingly decent team. Again, apologies, I can't remove the APAC teams off this. Then, next day, Houston 3-0'd the Spitfire. I was kind of surprised. I thought it would be a closer game than it was. And Spitfire's rush comp kind of looked like it was figured out a bit by Houston. Then we just went through this game, the reverse sweep from the San Francisco Shock. Toronto got some revenge. They 3-1 the Boston Uprising, who again looking a little bit weak in the NA division. And the final games were pretty disappointing. Vancouver Titans looked all over the place. They got 0-3 by the Atlanta Reign, and it wasn't particularly close. The Fuel also 3-0 the Paris Eternal, and it didn't look particularly close. And then the Washington Justice, boom, every one of the viewers, ruin all their stonks, all their predictions. It's all in the dirt. They were looking really good. It was honestly, it's a false dawn. Washington Justice have just been the Met team. They always look like they have this power squad, but they just never seem to realise their potential. And I thought this year they were realising their potential. They looked so good. They looked incredible in the game versus Paris, who also looked pretty weak, admittedly. And they get 3-1 by the Boston, who looked pretty poor. And Washington just looked all over the place. For the standings, this takes Shock to 5-0, top of the standings. I think they're set now for the Kickoff Clash qualifiers. I don't think there's any world where they don't qualify. Fuel go to 4-1. I think they're also in now. It'd probably take a lot for some of these teams as well on 3 wins to miss out, especially ones with good map differentials. Reign, 3rd on a 3-1 at the moment. They have a few more games coming up. Mayhem on 3-2. Outlaws 3-2. Washington 3-2. Toronto 3-2. You just have this clump of teams who just seem to be a bit, all over the place to some degree. And then the LA Gladiators, who again were probably one of the top 3 teams, top 3 or 4 teams expected to do well in the regular season. And they're sat at 2-2 at the moment. But I'd fancy them. They've had a really tough schedule. They've played Dallas. They've played Shock. They're tough games. So I expect them to do well into the coming weekends. I can't remember who they're playing actually, but I don't think it's as hard a game as they've had recently. Then in the cutoff at the moment, London Spitfire, who are playing a completely different comp and flying the flag for Europe at the moment, they're 2-2 as well. Boston, surprisingly, are 2-3 at the moment. I thought they were going to struggle a lot more. But that surprise win against Washington gives them a chance for the kickoff clash. And realistically, New York Excelsior, Vancouver Titans, and Paris Eternal will not be playing in the kickoff clash. Titans have looked all over the place. I'm kind of surprised they have got a better map differential than the Paris Eternal. But they haven't looked wonderful either. They've also struggled with... I think they've struggled a bit with their communication between the tanks and deciding which tanks and comps they want. They seem to be a bit off at the moment. Not helped by the fact that, Naga left the team and they've brought in Wub under very quick circumstances, so he's not really had time to scrim the team. I don't think Wub's looked bad either. He's looked, fine. But there just seems to be a bit of a disconnect. The support line, though, with Khan gives me a little bit of hope. The Titans, though, I've just not been that impressed with. I don't know really what's going on. They don't seem to have a great read on the meta at the moment, so hopefully they can turn their fortunes around. And the Excelsior seem to have a good team on paper, but they just don't seem to be able to, you know, harness that potential consistently throughout matches. They show glimpses of looking great, and then, like, they just seem to go off the boil again. It's really frustrating for the New York Excelsior, and to be a New York Excel fan at the moment. So going into the final weekend, I think it's really between, you know, London, Boston, and these top 8 teams for who gets into the kickoff clash. And I expect the top 8 teams who are there at the moment to stay in there. The only exception might be, I could see Boston sneaking into there, but it would take a lot for Boston to sneak in there still. So we want to check out the fixtures into the coming weekend. The LA Gladiators are playing against the London Spitfire. This is honestly a mouth-watering clash, but we'll try and not go over the Gladiators again. But whoever wins that is probably going to be good for a playoff space. So there's a good chance for London to try and, you know, put their destiny in their own hands. But I'm expecting the Gladiators to overcome the Spitfire. Excelsior are playing the Defiant, and I would expect the Defiant to get over the Excelsior. But, you know, this is a chance for the Excelsior. If they show their best, which they, you know, put on offer occasionally, they could beat the Defiant. I'd be amazed if the Vancouver Titans took a map off the Shock. I think this is going to be one of the biggest stomps you've ever seen in Overwatch, so good luck, Titans. Then Spitfire play the Atlanta Reign as well. Very tough weekend for the Spitfire, but, you know, they have their destiny in their own hands for the playoffs, and that's where you want to be. Eternal are going to struggle to overcome the Outlaws. Florida Mayhem and Washington Justice, I don't know. This is going to be the crazy game. This could be, you know, 3-2 draws on escort matches. Florida Mayhem have picked some weird comps, and the Washington Justice have looked insanely good at times, and insanely bad at others. So, who knows which Washington Justice are going to turn up. And then finally, the Boston Uprising, who have also got a chance to sneak into this playoffs. They'll just have to overcome, you know, the Dallas Fuel, one of the best teams from last season and one of the top teams this season. And then finally, the Gladiators match up against the Reign. This is going to be another pretty tasty game. I'd say with these, we're probably the 3rd and 4th, like, seeds coming into the season. So I'm intrigued to see how they're going to stack up against one another. I would probably put my bet on Gladiators, but only just. I think this could be another 3-2. Hopefully for the Gladiators in their favour. And this leads me to the team of the week for the Atlantic Division. And I've made some spicy picks here, mainly because the games of this weekend were a bit all over the places. A lot of teams went 1-1 when they were playing 2 games. And then others went, you know, 1-0 and 0-1. So it's kind of hard to, you know, judge who really had, you know, great games. But there were some notable exceptions. I thought that Hanbin and Edison on their Ghost Bubble combo looked superior to any other team that's run it. So I've put Hanbin in again at the tank position and Edison in at the DPS position. Even though Washington kind of, you know, pooped the bed a little bit in their second game against Boston, Decay's performance was so insanely good against Paris that I've put him into my team of the week. There were potentially other, you know, candidates, but I thought I'd give another DPS player a shot at the limelight. We know that Proper and Kilo are insane, and they are insane. That being said, I think for the 3rd week I put Finn in as support. I think he's been the best player so far this season. In my opinion, he is definitely the rookie of the season so far, and I think he's also been the best player of the season, as I said. I think he could get both. Will he get both? Probably unlikely, but in my eyes, he's done very little wrong. And then finally, on the classical main support hero, I've put in Funny Astro. The Gladiators, you know, they needed a little bit of niceness for the week they've had. It's been a rough week. He's been so good on the Lucio. He's made a couple of errors, but, you know, a lot of the Lucios have, so I'll cut him some slack. But he has got so many final blows on Lucio that it's crazy. So he's got into my team of the week. And this finally leads me to the play of the week. And my play of the week, as you may be able to see on the screen behind me, has gone to Haddy from the London Spitfire. They struggle in this game with their rush comp, but Haddy, or Chaddy as I call him in this moment, goes big on Reinhardt, one of my favourite heroes. He's not popular in the meta at the moment, but London are trying to make it happen. So this is on Circuit Royale. For some reason, the Outlaws decide to run, you know, the Rhine comp into Haddy with Piggy on the Rhine, classically an off-tank player. Lastro hits a big beat, hits everyone but Pelican, And does Harry give a shit? No. Walk around this wall, shatters the entire team, kills the Mei, hits a fire strike, pins in, gets a double kill on the pin, so this is a 3k, 4k, and 5k. The fade away fire strike. Chaddy, you are my play of the week. Anyway, if you enjoyed this episode, why not leave a like and subscribe? Everything helps me out. Chaddy's waving his out for goodbye, and I'll see you on the next episode. Goodbye.